And hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of My Isolation podcast. And today, I'm going to be talking about the Spider-Man movies. Yep, I'm doing a complete retrospective on all the Spider-Man movies that have come out over the years. This includes the Raimi trilogy, the Mark Webb duology, the MCU trilogy, Into the Spider-Verse, and at the very end, it's a spoiler-filled discussion on Across the Spider-Verse. So yeah, this episode took a while. It's been about 2 weeks since I last did one of these. I just had some lot of things going on in my life where I wasn't able to, get around to doing this eventually. And also, trying to wrap the notes for all the Spider-Man movies took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. I thought it was going to take like a day, but nope, it took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. So basically, I'm going to be doing all the Spider-Man movies, and at the very end, we're going to be talking about Across the Spider-Verse, which came out 2 weeks ago. It's going to be a spoiler-filled discussion because it's been nearly 2 weeks. You've had time to see it, but if you still haven't seen it, I'll let you know when we get to it. You can get the hell out and come back in once we get to Across the Spider-Verse. I'll give you a warning. Don't worry. I know I tend to forget to give spoiler warnings when I do these, but I promise this time I won't forget. I won't forget this time. Unless I do, then in which case I'll apologize in advance. And yeah, because we've got a lot to get on with today, so let's just dive right in. So let's talk about Spider-Man first. Just gonna start off talking about my own personal history of the character of Spider-Man. I was fully aware. I was like a lot of people. Like I knew who Spider-Man was. Everyone knew who Spider-Man was when I was growing up. And obviously, yeah, I watched the Raimi trilogy when I was young, when I was a child. I remember when they came out. I remember when Spider-Man 2 came out. That was a bizarre time. So I watched the Raimi trilogy and everything, but I wouldn't say I was into the character. I wasn't really that into superheroes, to be honest. I mean, I watched superhero movies, but a lot of that was due to the fact that my brother used to be the big superhero guy in our family. He loved Batman and Spider-Man and he's and the X-Men and all sorts of superheroes. So it wasn't really until I would say 2011 when Amazing Spider-Man 1 was in production. That's when I started to get into the character. And I started watching a lot of YouTubers who talk about Spider-Man, like Samuel Gavin or Sam's channel as it's known now. Well, it was always known as Sam's channel, but he made a new one where he changed it to just his name. He talked about Spider-Man a lot. I watched Spectacular Spider-Man on YouTube. That was a great cartoon. That was a great animated series. I really hope that gets a third season someday. Come on, Disney. Come on, Sony. Work it out. Get the third season out on Disney Plus. That's the one everyone wants to see. No one wants to see Spider-Man Freshman Year, or whatever that new animated show is called, even if that isn't going to come out, because God knows that production has been hell. That's been hell. That's been a hell of production if you've kept up with all the drama, I guess. So that was kind of the thing, and I watched all the Spider-Man movies, and I love Spider-Man as a character. I feel like Spider-Man is probably my favorite superhero because he's so, for a guy who sticks to walls and spits webs out of his wrists, he's very relatable. You can relate to Spider-Man. He deals with kind of the problems and issues that you face in your life from your late teens to your early adult years to your mid adult years, if that's even a phrase, which probably isn't. But yeah, so I love Spider-Man. He's a great character. I wouldn't say I'm a big Spider-Man fan. I would say I'm more of a casual Spider-Man fan because I've never read the comic books. I've only really watched Spectacular Spider-Man in terms of the alternative media, I guess. So I've only really kept up to date with the movies. So I'd say I'm more of a casual Spider-Man fan because I've only seen the films and that's it. But I do love the character and his world and everything. And when a new Spider-Man movie comes out, I'll be right there in the cinema. Unless it's one of those villain movies or Morbius or that Craven the Hunter movie. I'm not gonna watch those in the cinema. Fuck that shit. They're terrible. They're terrible. Which FYI, by the way, I should probably mention at the beginning. I'm not talking about Venom. I'm not talking about Let There Be Carnage. I'm not talking about Morbius in this. I'm just sticking with the Spider-Man movies about Spider-Man. I'm not doing any of the spin-offs because number one, the only spin-off I've seen was the first Venom movie and I hated it. I'm not bothered watching Let There Be Carnage or Morbius. And number two, I just don't want to watch them. I just don't want to watch them. Sorry, I really just don't. I just don't want to see them. Like, they're terrible. I've heard Morbius is so bad. It's just, no. I've not seen Morbius, but I don't want to. I just don't want to. I don't want to watch those. Please. I watched the first Venom film. I'm done with the spin-offs already. I don't care. So I'm only going to talk about the main Spider-Man movies, and which includes Spider-Verse. I think Spider-Verse counts as one of the mainline Spider-Man films. I don't care what anyone says. And the way this is going to work is that it's going to work similar to the first episode when I did the retrospective on the Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Talking about all the movies in order, going a bit in depth with them, and that's pretty much it. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get started, because it's been 5 minutes already, and I've not even gotten to the first film yet. Oh boy. So let's get started, shall we? First off, Spider-Man from 2002, the one that pretty much started all, in my opinion. I mean, let's lay the groundwork here. So comic movies, they've been pretty much dead in the water for a good long, I would say, a year at least. Batman and Robin came out and didn't do very well because it wasn't very good. And superhero movies after that, people didn't really take them seriously anymore. People didn't really, that sort of age where people looked in awe from the days of people looking in awe from superhero films, from like the days of the Richard Donner Superman movies and the first Tim Burton Batman film from Batman '89, as they like to people tend to call it. Those days were pretty much over, and superhero movies weren't really being taken seriously anymore. And then somewhere in the late 90s to the early 2000s, there was this sudden boom this superhero movie boom, comic book movie boom, to try and get them back on top. Marvel was going through a lot of bankruptcy issues at the time, so they sold off all the rights to their favorite characters to certain movie studios. And Spider-Man was pretty much, one of the ones that, he was in production for a very long time. And it finally got made. And I feel like, this is the one that sort of started it all for the modern day superhero film, Spider-Man 2002. It's the one that started it all for me, in my opinion. You had Blade, and you had X-Men, which kind of, they proved that comic movies could be, they got the ball rolling. Like, then they proved they could be taken seriously again. But Spider-Man from 2002, this film was the one that, that cemented the modern day superhero movie, and it stood its ground, and it pretty much said, we're back and we're here to stay. After this movie came out and did very well, superhero movies, they were back and they were here to stay. And they've been back ever since. They've not gone away anytime soon. That's why I don't buy in the whole superhero fatigue nonsense. I feel that's a lot of old nonsense. Really, I feel like if that was the case, superhero movies would have disappeared by like the early 2010s or the mid 2010s or something like that. So this one had a message to send to people, and it was, we're back and we're here to stay. And superhero movies, they stayed, and it's all thanks to Spider-Man 2002, really, and Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire and all those people involved with the production. But the movie has a very bizarre production history. They went from studio to studio. It went from filmmaker to filmmaker. I think Roger Corman was supposed to do this film at one point, and then obviously the James Cameron Spider-Man movie that was supposed to happen ended up getting cancelled. That was a thing. You can find storyboards for that online. That film that I've read up on is crazy. Like some of the scenes in there, like, Spider-Man and MJ on top of that building. I ain't gonna go more in depth than that. I'm pretty sure people know what I'm talking about. The swearing and Carlton Strands, and it was an odd film. I'm kind of glad that didn't happen. It just sounded really bizarre and really weird. I love James Cameron as a filmmaker. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, James Cameron is a fantastic filmmaker, but I don't know, his Spider-Man film sounded very bizarre. I'm glad it didn't get made. I do feel quite bad for him though, because a lot of his ideas did get taken from that film, got taken and put into this film, like the organic web shooters. That was from his movie. The organic? Yeah, it was the organic web shooters. Yeah, that was from his version, and Sony took that idea and kind of put into this one. Because originally Sam Raimi was going to do the mechanical web shooters. There was even a very early trailer for this film where you see Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker with the mechanical web shooters, and there's also concept art for it as well. But at some point, they changed it to organic web shooters because I feel like I think at the time they thought it would make more sense, which I don't get, because I feel like mechanical web shooters would have made a lot more sense. Would have showed Peter's his intellect a lot more better. But we'll get into that when we get to Amazing Spider-Man 1. So it went through a lot of history. There was going to be two villains, Doc Ock and Green Goblin. Then they scrapped that and just stuck with Goblin for then. And there were many actors lined up to play Spider-Man. But Tobey Maguire ends up getting the role in the end. So that's pretty much the history of it. But in terms of the actual film, basically, I love this movie so much. I love this movie. I mean, there was a brief period where there was a weird phase I went through, a lot of people went through, where people kind of turned on this film when Amazing Spider-Man 1 came out and claimed it was bad. But that was 17-year-old me being dumb, because I rewatched this movie. I think 2021 was the last time I watched it, because it was when No Way Home was about to come out. And honestly, I love this movie. It's so fucking good. It's so good. It's really interesting to go back and watch this film, because it really did lay the groundwork for the modern day superhero movie as we know it now. And like I said, this was the one that cemented superhero movies into pop culture now, and kind of is the reason why superhero movies have not gone away since. They're still around, they're still kicking, and they're going to be here till God knows when. And I just love the movie. I mean, like the actual the opening scene, like opening credits with the Danny Elfman's score and everything, that gives you kind of that weird sort of feeling about he's the Spider-Man theme that he does, the do 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 do, like that one. Well, first of all, it's iconic as fuck, and second of all, it gives you this weird kind of tingling sensation about the feeling that there's literally a spider crawling around, which is probably what he was aiming for, and he succeeded in that. But this movie is so nostalgic, and I love it. The campiness, the cheesiness, the kind of the warm colors. That's also another thing this movie brought back as well. I think X-Men and Blade, they showed that super movies could be taken seriously again. But I feel like this movie particularly showed that you can still have the goofy, silly, funny, cheesy kind of romp that you got with the Richard Donner Superman films, and still have a great product at the end of the day. Which is this movie is. It's still a great product. The opening scene is just hilarious. I mean, the Peter running away from the bus and everyone being in on it. Even the bus driver is in on it, which I just find so fucking funny in my life. It's hilarious that everyone's laughing. And you shouldn't really, because he's being bullied, but there's just something about seeing. It's just something hilarious about it. Like even the fact that the bus driver is in on it as well. It is just hilarious, but. And this is where we see Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, and he is just perfect. I love Tobey Maguire. Again, I went through that weird phase where everyone turned on Tobey Maguire back when Amazing Spider-Man 1 came out. But obviously, that's over now. That I've gone over that phase now, and honestly, honest to God, Tobey Maguire is such perfect in this role. And I'll admit, maybe his Spider-Man isn't the best, because he doesn't really make a lot of quips and a lot of jokes. But his Peter Parker is spot on. He nails the dorky loser, awkward loser vibe that you got from when that I'm assuming people got when they read, Spider-Man comics back in the 60s, which is kind of what he's taking more inspiration from. This takes more inspiration from the 60s kind of era, from the early runs of Spider-Man, and he nails it so much, and there's a weird charm to him as well. Especially and Tobey Maguire, first of all, he is the meme. He is the meme king. This is the man of many memes. You can make so many memes from this guy and his facial expressions and everything. But he just nails he nails the likable loser in a way, and you really understand where he's coming from. But when the emotional shit happens, the emotional moments in this movie, which this movie has a lot of them, he nails it properly. He completely, you feel sorry for him. When Uncle Ben dies, when Aunt May gets attacked by the Goblin, you feel for Peter Parker, and you want him to rise up and take down the Goblin. And his character, there's charm to him, to this version, but he never lashes out at the kids who pick on him. He never really lashes out. And there is that scene where he fights Flash, but that's more in self-defense. And to be fair, I mean, yeah, that was more in self-defense than anything else, which does make him a pretty good role model for young kids, I think. He never really lashes out, but he always tries to do the right thing. He always tries to, even if he doesn't get what he wants, he's always doing the right thing, and I feel like that's what makes this version a pretty decent role model for children. And why a lot of kids from the early 2000s looked up to this version of Peter Parker, specifically. But the rest of the cast, did a good job. James Franco, before how weird everyone found out he was a great, Harry Osborn, Robinson, and Rosemary Harris was fantastic. Uncle Ben and Aunt May, they were just perfect for these roles. They were born to play these roles. You really brought the fact that they were this old married couple and they loved each other. They didn't have a lot, but their love and compassion for each other was just enough. Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin. I mean, what can I really say? I mean, he is just Willem Dafoe is just perfect as the Green Goblin. Everything, like the facial expressions, the voice, the Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation you've got going on with the villain. The costume kind of sucks. Looks like a Power Rangers villain, but you know what? I mean, everything else makes up for it. He's fantastic in this role. I'm glad they brought him back from No Way Home, and he was able to kind of increase. Given a chance to expand on what he could do with that character. It wasn't just a repeat of what he did in this film. It was him taking what he already did, but expanding on it further and further and further. Because you really, you feel the threat that Green Goblin has in this film, but in No Way Home they expanded it much better, much bigger. As I said back in the first episode of this very podcast, which you can go back and listen to right now. Bill plug in there. Mary Jane as love interest, and honestly, Kirsten Dunst does a great job as Mary Jane. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, as I said in the MCU Phase 4 episode when I talked about Multiverse of Madness, romance is not really Raimi's strongest suit, in my opinion. And I feel like the relationship between Peter and MJ, I feel in this trilogy shows that very well. I feel like they're not a great couple. And Mary Jane, I mean, she always needs saving, and he's very needy. You kind of, it's one of those things where you watch and you think, why did Peter chase after her for all that time? He was better off hooking up with Mr. Dickovich's daughter, the landlord from the second film, which we'll get to. Don't worry. But the best cast member of all time is J.K. Simmons. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is the best casting in the entire Spider-Man series. Like, it is just perfect. It's just perfect. You cannot recast Jonah, and there's a reason why whenever they've done animated shows, whenever they have got another actor to play him in like animated shows and video games, a lot of the voice actors have always tried to embrace what J.K. Simmons did for the character of J. Jonah Jameson, because he is just perfect. Like, his approach, his look, and everything. There's a reason why they brought him back for the MCU, like, rather than recasting him. I mean, like, and there's a reason why. We'll get on. We'll get on to that. I was going to say something, but I'll get onto that later on, particularly towards the end. Let's just say that. J.K. Simmons, J. Jameson is a great character. He has his moments of being a genuinely decent human being as well, like when Green Goblin bursts into the Daily Bugle and he grabs him by the throat, and he's trying to find out who Peter is, because Peter takes pictures of Spider-Man, and J. Jameson is like, oh, I don't know who he is. His stuff comes in the mail. Like, he shows that even though he's an arsehole, he still has a decent heart at the end of the day. I feel like, which was a scene that was so good. In fact, they spoofed it in Spectacular Spider-Man, the animated show, which you should watch because it's a very good show. And the other characters as well, like Flash was good. A lot of the extras, the extras in this movie, they're just something else. They're something else. They're so, oh god, like they're not great. Like, they're bad, but they're iconically bad. Like, the teacher in this school when he's like next person talks fails his course. I swear to God, like, it's just hilarious. The cage guy during the fight, during the fight, fight scene in like the wrestling scene. He that was just that. I don't know what it is about that guy. The one who goes Cage. But like this is like the way he delivers it. It's just hilarious. It's hilarious. And then you have other extras as well. Like during the parade scene, there's that girl that points and goes, "Look, it's Spider-Man," and I'm just like, it's just so cheesy. It's so cheesy and it's so dumb, but it's just enjoyable. This movie just embraces the fact that it knows it's cheesy and it's goofy and it's lighthearted, but it just embraces it for what it is, and it's just I fucking love this film. Like this film is just perfection. It's perfection. It really is. And speaking of the tone is I love the tone in these movies. I mean, again, like X-Men and Blade, they show that you can be done in a much more darker tone for superhero films. But this film proved that no, you can still do the goofy, lighthearted silliness from the original Superman movies as long as you work in some good and powerful drama in there as well, like the comic books had. You can still embrace the goofy and silliness as well, and it doesn't contrast either. Like it mixes in quite well. I do, and again, the tone is perfect. It's cheesy as fuck, but it's just fantastic. And I just loved, and the color palette in this movie is just so good. Like I miss this color palette, man, for superhero movies. It's one of the main reasons why. One of the things I loved about that Multiverse of Madness brought back. That I love just the orange kind of tint, the warmer color palette. I just love it. I just love it. It's just I miss that. I miss that warmer color palette. I want it back. God damn it, bring it back. It made me the man I am today. And yeah, it's not. It's and again, like this movie, like it still works in the modern day, like the tone and stuff like that. But again, like it's not like this movie hasn't aged. It's aged. It's aged well, but it's aged regardless. And there are some negatives about it. Like the action for a start. The action for a start is it's aged well, but it still feels it's aged regardless. It can feel quite basic at times, especially when compared to Spider-Man 2, 3, and all the other Spider-Man movies where they go for bigger and more eccentric kind of action sequences, with the exception of No Way Home. But we'll get to that when we get to that because that kind of worked for No Way Home. Some of the dialogue as well, has a very early 2000s kind of vibe. Like, of course, the fight scene, the wrestling scene when Pierce says the line about did your husband give it to you? That line, which some people have read as a bit of a homophobic slur, I guess, which I can understand. It is a very 2000s line. Let's just say that it reeks of the early 2000s. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I can understand why some people would, get a bit about that line. But again, but all that is saved. That doesn't bring the movie down because it's saved by these. It's weird because it's cheesy and it's a lighthearted movie, but there's so many, and the sequel does this, but there's so many like big, huge, emotional, powerful scenes and moments. Particularly between Peter and Uncle Ben, you really feel their bond for one another. And so when Peter snaps at Uncle Ben in the car, and then we get to Uncle Ben's death, and it breaks your heart. It really breaks your heart. Like when he says, "With great power comes great responsibility," it just breaks your heart. And then there's scenes between Peter, with Peter and his Aunt May, that are just emotional and powerful. Norman Osborn's death is even more powerful, and the fact that even the ending when Harry decides, I'll get Spider-Man, and blames Peter for his father's death without even knowing that Peter is Spider-Man. It's just, I feel like if those emotional moments weren't in there and weren't as good as they were, the film would probably be dragged down a little bit. But those emotional moments, man, they save the movie for me. They're fantastic, and it proves that Raimi can do drama. Like, it's not just horror; he can do a good drama when he wants to. Because Sam Raimi is a good filmmaker. He's a good filmmaker. He's a fantastic filmmaker. This has his staple over it. He even embraces like his horror roots as well. Like particularly with Green Goblin. I remember one scene in particular, like when Peter's asleep in the hospital when he's looking after May, and then he has that dream, and Green Goblin just randomly pops up and goes ah. I remember that scene used to terrify me as a kid. It doesn't anymore, but as a child, Jesus Christ, like Green Goblin scared the fuck out of me when I was a child. I swear down. And that's because of Raimi's, horror roots, incorporating, little bits of his horror roots in there. which I really enjoy. Um, Danny Elfman's score, as I said before, is iconic. If during the opening credits, feels like a spider rolling, scrolling around. It does have elements that sound a little bit similar to his Batman theme, but I don't really say it's a bad thing, because I love his Batman theme. Again, that's also iconic, and that's probably one of the main things I'm looking forward to when I eventually go see The Flash, which I'm gonna go see because I'm interested, I'm intrigued, I want to go see it. I just hope it's good. I just hope I hope I like it. I know it's got a bit of a mixed reception, to say the least. Mixed to positive, but for myself, I want to see. I want to see if I like it. We'll see. We'll see. It does have elements of his Batman theme, but again, it works, and and the rest of it, the soundtrack just works well. It mixes well the cheesiness and the fantastical elements and the tone, and everything, and it's a great score. It's a great theme, and if they ever do Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi, I hope Danny Elfman comes back. I know he didn't come back for the third one. He wasn't going to come back for the second one, but he changes. I think something happened that changed his mind. But I hope he comes back, and I want to hear that. I want to hear that again. I want to hear that theme tune again. I want to hear that theme tune again. I miss that theme tune so much. And again, it really did. I think the sequel did this better, but this film really was able to establish the baby steps of showing how balancing a personal life and a superhero life can be challenging. Again, I get the sequel did this better, but for their first go at a Spider-Man movie and really showing the side, it's a good first attempt. Because the Superman movies never really did that. I guess you could say the second one maybe, but I wouldn't say Superman movies really show the difficult. Like Clark Kent has never really had any difficulty balancing his personal life and Superman life. At least not in the Superman movies I've really seen, unless there's something in Man of Steel that I missed, because I've not watched Man of Steel in a long time. I still like that movie though. I still like it. Don't worry, I still like that film. But yeah, for their first attempt, their first go, having kind of this. This kind of aspect about superhero life of balancing that with your personal life. I think they did it really well. The sequel does it much better, but for their first go, it's all right, it's good. The final fight between Gobby and Spider-Man is it's grand and it's epic and it's full of emotion and tone, like when Green Goblin's just beating the crap out of Spider-Man, and then he's saying all that stuff about Mary Jane, and then Peter gets pissed off and he decides, fuck you, I'm gonna, he starts punching him back, he starts fighting him back, and then he takes off his mask. Norman Osborn takes off his mask and he finds out it's Norman Osborn, and then he dies. His glider impales him and he dies, and it's just a big emotional moment, and you really see towards the end Peter's world really is just starting to crumble, which is a great setup for, and it ends on for a goofy and lighthearted movie, it ends on a very a downer note, because like Harry turns against Spider-Man, which means he turns against his best friend without knowing it. Mary Jane, now wants Peter, but he wants her, but he can't be with her because she'll get in danger, so he has to turn her down. He has to turn her down, and it ends on a bit of a downer, which is good because it sets up the sequel really well, and it shows, and I think it does show that not all superhero life is fantastic and fabulous and all warm colors. Like there's going to be struggles, and you're going to have to. You're just gonna have to deal with them the best you can, and I feel like that's a very good and very powerful and emotional and effective ending as well. And that's pretty much the first Spider-Man movie. That's all I've really got to say for the first one. But at the end of the day, this is still a good movie. It's nostalgic as hell. It's fantastic. If you've not rewatched this in a long time, I would recommend rewatching it. I know some people who just skip to 2, and I get that because 2 is a much stronger piece than this one. But honestly, don't skip this one. Rewatch this one because it is fantastic, and it's good to see. This is the film that brought superhero movies back from the dead, back from the grave, and again showed everybody. And again, it showed people that superhero movies, we're back and we're here to stay. And this is the film that brought that back. Because without this film, there'd be no MCU, there'd be no Iron Man, there'd be no Avengers, none of that stuff. All of that we can really thank to this film, as well as Blade and the first X-Men film, of course. But I feel like this film in particular, you can really thank them for that. You can really thank this movie for that. It helped. We wouldn't have the superhero movies that we have today without Spider-Man from 2002. So if you haven't watched in a while, go look up a copy. I think you can find a box set with online for like 20 quid or something. Box set. And go watch this movie. It's a classic. It's a fucking classic. I fucking love this film. Absolutely love this film. But not as much as I love its sequel, Spider-Man 2 from 2004. Oh, fucking hell. This film improved on the first one in almost every single way. Literally every single way. It took the second one and it upped it and it improved it and it fucking long jumped over it. It's just this film is such an improvement on the second one. It's the same thing with Across the Spider-Verse, which we'll get into later. But I love when sequels do this. They take the first one and they improve upon it, and they make a movie that not only rivals the first, but it's better than the first. Because this movie is way better than the first one, and I love the first one, but I prefer this. I prefer the sequel. I prefer Spider-Man 2. It improved on the first one every single way. Danny Elfman's score is just unmatched, and it's even better in this one. It's bigger and it's bolder and it's more epic. Doc Ock's theme is just perfect. And during the fight, it's just, oh my god, it's just so good. It is so good. The opening sequence, the opening credits as well. That's actually something I forgot to mention. The opening credits for the first one, they dragged on a little too long, and I wouldn't say they drag on as long for this one. But even if they did, the gorgeous comic book drawings and artwork that they used to recap the first one, and remind everyone what happened in the first one, get them all up to speed. They look fantastic. They look great. I think they were drawn by actual Marvel comic book artists, and it looks like that. It looks, and it improves in every way, and it looks like it, and it improves on every single. It's just they're gorgeous to look at, and it's so good. It's so good. It's just gorgeous to look at, really. Toby, he's improved massively since the first film. That's not to say he wasn't even that bad in the first film, but he really upped his game in this one. It gives a very compelling kind of performance as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man, and you really buy his struggle. Again, the first film touched upon the struggles of superhero life and personal life. This film pretty much embraces it. You really feel the struggle that Peter has when balancing the life of a superhero and the life of a college student. He's got to save people, but he's behind on his coursework. He's behind on his rent. He's struggling with his school. Dr. Connors, who's played by Dylan Baker brilliantly in this film, by the way. I'm really sad that he didn't get to be the Lizard, but you never know. Maybe if Raimi wants to do Spider-Man 4, we could finally see that happen. But we'll see. You really buy Peter's struggles in this movie, and his problems with MJ. He's conflicted. He wants to be with her, but he doesn't want to put her in danger. And you really get that kind of confliction. I wouldn't say their relationship is better in this one. I still find it quite toxic. But you do kind of, it does, he's seeing his struggles and stuff like that. You do get where he's coming from. And he's trying to make amends with Harry because Harry kind of disowns him halfway through the film. There's that scene where he slaps him. And then obviously Harry finds out he's Spider-Man at the end, but that's not till the end. But he's trying really hard to make it up with Harry. He keeps getting fired from Daily Bugle and to get rehired again. The whole, half the city is against him because of the Daily Bugle's slander against Spider-Man and hatred against Spider-Man. His Aunt May is having struggles keeping her house. It's all piles up, and you really feel the tension that Peter is under and the weight that he's got. He's literally carrying in this film. He's got to carry that weight, and you really feel that struggle. And Tommy Maguire gives such a good performance in this. And like the first one, there's so many good emotional moments in this. And the scene where Peter, tells Aunt May what happened with Uncle Ben, how he's responsible for Uncle Ben's death. and like the way Toby held himself and composes it. It's like, oh my god, it makes you want to cry. It really does. And the fact that Aunt May just doesn't say anything, she just leaves the room because she doesn't know what to say. It's just, oh my, it's one of those great powerful moments from one of the most iconic superhero movies ever made. Doc Ock is a great villain, one of the best Spider-Man villains of all time. Would I say he's on the same level as a Goblin? I probably would say he's much better than Goblin. Much more compelling villain. You buy his motivation as to why he's turned to the dark side, because Rosie died, his experiment went wrong, and the microchip in his back fried, so the arms are actually influencing his decisions and telling him what to do, which is kind of creepy. It's one of those creepy, goofy, silly kind of things. Like it's silly, but when you think about it, that's also quite scary. Like having these artificial arms that you're telling you what to do, and you're just not aware of it. And his costume as well is much more better than Goblin's. Like he doesn't look like a Power Rangers villain. He looks like a comic book villain, and a very creepy comic book villain at that. Because you don't want to get on the wrong side of this guy. Like those arms, those tentacles. I mean, my god, that scene in the fucking hospital when he just kills all those staff members. And which again is Raimi kind of embracing his horror roots in this film. Like that's a very scary scene. That's a creepy scene. Like the tension, the suspense, and the silence, and just the fact you hear the screams and everything. It's just oh my god, that's such an effective scene. The love story between Peter and MJ, as I said, is still kind of toxic. It's really confusing, and it's hard to grasp what the intentions are with this relationship. And I get that he wants to be with her, but he doesn't want to put her in danger. But as I said beforehand, I thought Miss Dickovich's daughter was much better. Which would have been a love interest with Toby's Peter Parker. I feel like Toby's Peter Parker deserved way more than Mary Jane Watson in this film. And again, I don't know. I just don't like the romance in these movies. I think it's the only weakest aspect of the films for me, really. But what is not a weak aspect is the comedy, because the comedy in this film is fantastic. I mean, the jokes James J. Jameson, says and does, like, you're fired, you're rehired. Like that's just hilarious to me. The scene where he just bursts out laughing, like when Peter says, "Oh, can you pay me in advance?" And there's that laugh that he gives off. And he's like, "You serious?" Like that thing has been memed to death, and you can see why it's been memed to death, because I mean, come on, like there's a reason why that thing's been memed to death. Like it's hilarious. It's fucking hilarious. But the best, funniest character in this movie and in these next two films, in my opinion, he's not in it for very much, is the landlord, Mr. Dickovich. Peter's landlord. He is just he is hilarious. He is my favorite character in the entire Raimi trilogy. It's Mr. Dickovich, the landlord. like when Peter walks in, he goes, "Rent," and then Peter's like, "Hi," and he's like, "Hi? What's hi? Can I spend it? If promises were crackers, my daughter would be fat." And it's just hilarious. He's a likable asshole, but at the same time, he's the landlord. Peter's got rent to pay, and he needs his money. But it also shows, the fact that, Peter's late on rent, but Mr. Dickovich keeps him there anyways, because he knows that Peter is a decent guy and a decent human being, which shows that, his trust towards Peter. But I do feel like Mr. Dickovich is just hilarious. I want a spin-off right now. I want a spin-off on Disney Plus called The Dickoviches, and it's a sitcom, and it's just their everyday lives, and in the background of a scene you see Spider-Man firing somebody. I want that. Give me that. Disney Plus, Sony, work it out, sort it out, and get it made. I want Mr. Dickovich. I want him back, or at least put him in the college trilogy. Make him Tom Holland's landlord. I don't give a shit. You brought back J.K. Simmons, J.J. Jameson. You can bring back Mr. Dickovich, because bring him back. God damn it, he needs to come back. Man, I miss him. I miss that character. And Bruce Campbell as well. I mean, his cameos are always hilarious. Like in the first film when he's the referee for the fight. And he's like, and he says the line, "The Amazing Spider-Man." He's taking the piss out of Peter's name. And then this one when he's the box office guy, where he lets people in and he's not letting Peter in, and it's just hilarious. And also, and the other comedy moments are great too. Like Pizza Time, the Mr. Aziz, the owner of the pizza shop, He has some good moments, but the film doesn't get bogged down by them. I feel like the film utilizes the comedy and the goofiness and lightheartedness perfectly, to where it balances out well with the more emotional moments in this movie, because this movie has a lot of them. Like I was saying before, when Peter finally tells her that he's Spider-Man, not he's Spider-Man, when Peter finally tells Aunt May what happened to Uncle Ben, Toby's performance in this film is just Toby's performance in that scene is just perfection, and Rosemary Harris's performance is also perfection. And then even the other scene where Aunt May gives Peter the $20 for his birthday, and he's saying, I don't need this to keep it, I don't need it, because she's struggling herself, and she just has that little outburst where she's like, no, take it, just take it, and it's just it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see that. Peter finding out that MJ is engaged, the scene where Harry slaps Peter, and the conflict of losing his father and his hatred of Spider-Man as well. But I feel like the best emotional moment, or the best two emotional moments, in this movie would be the hero and all of us speech. Is the first one, the one that Aunt May gives Peter, which I think I may have mentioned this in the MCU Phase 4 retrospective, but it is just such a great speech, and it's just there's speeches from the MC that in some of the best there's speeches and monologues from some of the best MCU films that just do not compare to the "There's a Hero in All of Us" speech from Spider-Man 2 from 2004. Like it's heartwarming, it's impactful, and it's got good meaning behind it. It's got good meaning behind it. It's got a good lesson. There's a hero in all of us if we look really hard, we do the right thing, and it encourages people to do the right thing. And which is why I feel like makes Spider-Man a great role model for children. Because he always bounces back how hard things get. He always tries to do the right thing, and I do believe that I think there's a theory around that speech kind of hints to her knowing that he's Spider-Man, even though he doesn't say it. And honestly, I believe that. I think she knows he's Spider-Man. I think she does. Otherwise, why would she have that speech? I think that she probably figured it out when he told her what really happened to Uncle Ben, which is probably another reason why he held off telling her for so long. And she knows he's Spider-Man. I believe she does. And it's a great emotional moment as well. And one is the "I'll always be Spider-Man" moment, like when him and MJ are in the web and they're chilling, and he's like, "I'll always be Spider-Man." That's just a good line to me. Unfortunately, that line is kind of redundant now because Tobey was no longer the only Spider-Man. He got replaced with Andrew, and then Andrew got replaced with Tom. But he came back on the way home, so in a way, he's still the OG. He's still the OG though. That doesn't matter. But I think the action in this movie is leaps and bounds better than the first one. In the first one, it felt a little bit too basic, but in this one, it's just crazy. It's craziness. There's the funky camera angles, the way Doc Ock arms are used to create the explosions and the tension. The train, I'll get to the train sequence in just a minute, but even the opening sequence where it's just Peter swinging through with a box of pizzas and he has to save two kids, even that has a big, grand, epic kind of scale to it, in a weird way, that I really like. And, because in the day, it's just Peter trying to get this order delivered on time. But even then, it's still a compelling action sequence, and there's still a little bit of comedy left in there, like when the guy sees him, Spider-Man, swing out with the pizzas, and he's like, "Hey, he stole that guy's pizzas." I feel like that's great. The scene at the bank was also really good as well. The way Doc Ock was using his arms to try and cause damage to Spider-Man, throwing the money everywhere and everything, and then pushing away all the police officers, as well as Spider-Man trying to use his webs, but they were running out, they were running low, because obviously that's one of the major themes in the movie is Peter struggling to keep his identity, and the whole Spider-Man no more kind of thing, which is handled really well, by the way. I think that this is probably the best that comic book storyline's been handled in film thus far. You never know, maybe the Tom Holland ones will in the future will handle that maybe a little bit better, but we'll see what happens with that. the action in this movie, like, and the warehouse and the final battle as well, like it's purely epic with the son with his machine, and and Doc Ock sacrificing himself, which No Way Home may have undone that, but I don't think it's done. I don't think it did. I think No Way Home was perfectly able to kind of not retcon Doc Ock's development, because obviously, Doc Ock says in No Way Home, "Oh, I had him by the throat," which means that he must have gotten taken just before Peter gave him that speech and made him realize what he was doing. Um, and yeah, but the action in this movie is great. But the best action sequence, though, by far, is the train sequence. Doc Ock, Spider-Man, flying on a train. It's epic, it's huge, it's fantastic, it's grand. It's just like the way that Spider-Man moves. Like, there's a scene where he bursts out of a window and then he uses his webs to reel him back onto the side of the train. And just the choreography in that scene, the tension, the suspense, even the extended cut of the train sequence, which I have seen on YouTube, is just pure spectacle. It's pure, it's pure Sam Raimi. This is Sam Raimi at his best, in my opinion. Like, this is just, oh my god, like I can't really put it into words just how great the train sequence in this movie really is. It's one of those action sequences you just gotta watch for yourself. If you've not seen Spider-Man 2, if you've not seen this trilogy, then what are you doing? Go watch this trilogy. It's fantastic. But the train sequence, specifically in Spider-Man 2, is just phenomenal. And it's one of the best action sequences, honestly, in superhero movie history. Really, in my opinion, it is. Like, it builds a lot of tension, a lot of suspense. And it's just a great time. It's just a great scene. To get on to the Spider-Man No More aspect as well. Cause I forgot to mention this in my notes, but yeah, the way that Peter is slowly losing his powers as a metaphor for him slowly not wanting to be Spider-Man anymore, you really do feel that. So when he does give it up, you don't like have any hatred towards Peter. You understand where Peter is coming from and why he wants to give it up, and but there are scenes where he is like debate, but there are scenes earlier on where he's debating on not, was this the right decision to make? Like when he's in his hotel, when he's in an apartment, and he's like, am I not supposed to have what I want? What am I supposed to do? Or the scene where there's someone getting beaten up in the street and he just turns and walks away because he's not Spider-Man anymore. He doesn't want to save him. But there's a bit of hesitation in his mind where he's like, I should save him, but no, I've given that life up. And I don't want that life. I want Spider-Man no more. I don't want to be Spider-Man anymore. And you see, like, when he's had that dream sequence where he's talking to Uncle Ben, and you see just Ben's face just drop when Peter tells him, Spider-Man, I want a life of my own. And it's just like, it's like Uncle Ben has had that face where he's just like, you've let me down, you failed. With great power comes great responsibility, and all that stuff. It's just one of the main reasons why this movie is so fucking good. And one of the best sequels imaginable. One of the best sequels in superhero movie history. One of the best superhero movies in general, and probably still to this day remains the best Spider-Man movie ever made. I would say that's at number one. And number two would be Across the Spider-Verse, which I'll get onto that further on down the line. And number three would be Into the Spider-Verse. So which means that Tom Holland ones kind of, and the other ones rank a little lower, but I mean, they're still good movies, though. I like most of the Spider-Man movies. There's only one that I do not like, and we'll get to that one in due course. But this is still a great sequel, and if you've not seen it, watch the first one first, and then watch this one. Honestly, like, this movie, it literally created the mold that other Spider-Man movies have followed since then. Like, I feel like whenever a filmmaker or somebody gets asked to direct a Spider-Man movie, the first thing they do is watch Spider-Man 2, and they go, how can I live up to that? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way that they do it, because I know that's what the MCU does, or at least they do that with Superman the movie, the first Rich Donner Superman movie. Kevin Feige said that whenever they make a new film or show, I guess they watch that one and they try and find what can we do to live up to that. But it's still it's the greatest Spider-Man movie ever made. Go see it, and you'll have a good time. And you will also definitely have a good time with the next film, Spider-Man 3, because I mean, look, Spider-Man 3 came out in 2007, and when I first saw it, I didn't like it. I just thought it was too stuffed. I just didn't like the storylines that they put in there. I felt the way that Venom was used was just bad, and I still do to an extent. But honestly, as the years have gone by, my opinion on Spider-Man 3 has changed, and I like it now. Yeah, I like this movie. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I think the second one is better, and I think that it doesn't live up to that. And in terms of the trilogy, it's the weakest installment. But you know what? Like I feel like I like it because it still has that heart that the first two movies had. Like, and it's still Sam Raimi, even though Sam Raimi this isn't his best Spider-Man movie, but you know what? He tried his best. He's still putting his effort and his all into it, and that has to be admired. And I feel like there's still a good movie in this film that's trying really hard to get out, but it's just stuffed. It's just covered with. It's just got a lot of like things it's got to break through, like all the villains and everything. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a bad movie like at all. There's still a lot of things about this film I really like. Tobey Maguire being the meme king. I mean, this movie. I mean, if you want to talk about Tobey Maguire Spider-Man memes, this is the film. This is probably the film that uses them like the most of all of them, especially the emo Peter stuff. The dance scene. I don't care what anyone says. I love the dance scene. I love the emo Peter stuff. It's comedy gold. And it's supposed to be stupid. It's supposed to be goofy because these movies are stupid and goofy, and it's supposed to be showcasing what this Peter Parker thinks is cool. Him dressing in black, has the fringe, and dancing everywhere, and it's just like I love Spider-Man. I do love Spider-Man 3. It's a great film, but it's still good. I love that stuff. The comedy, I feel like it movie is actually really funny. Like, it didn't really overstay its welcome. There wasn't any joke point where there was a joke being made where I was like, ugh, really? Because I was like, really, come on. Like, there were jokes in TASAM 2 and even some of the Tom Holland films where there were jokes where I was just like, oh, come on, really? But in this film, nah. Like, I feel like maybe it's because of the cheesiness and the goofiness of the goofy nature of these movies, but I laughed my ass off during a lot of them. Like, I love the part where like J.J. Emerson is he's trying to take his pills, and Betty Brant is just there like, yeah, your wife says to take these pills, and he just drops them everywhere. And I feel like that's quite funny. I feel like that's quite funny. Also, seeing with James Emerson, during the final fight, he's trying to find a camera to like take pictures of the final fight with Spider-Man and Sandman and all the other villains. But he buys a camera off some little girl and just having filming it. I just felt like that's hilarious. The emo Peter stuff, like I said, it's just that's just hysterical, and even some of the music as well, like even some of the lines that he says, like, I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye. Like, that is just pure, that's just hilarious, and I love it. I don't care if it was unintentional or intentional or not. Like, that is just, to me, that is just pure gold. That is pure gold. I love that line, and some of the other lines as well, like where he says, "See ya, chump," like that line. I love that. Like, and again, like these like lines of evil Peter, emo Peter. It's just hilarious, and I know people would say that's not intentional, but you know what? I love it anyway, and I don't care what people say. So the comedy in this movie, I like it. It made me laugh, and there wasn't really a joke the way I looked at it and went, ugh. The villains in this film, again, Venom is the weakest one. He is the weakest one, but again, I will give him credit where credit is due. They were trying to figure out, how to handle, because it was one of the few times, I think this could be one of the earliest examples of handling multiple villains in each film. I know there were other films that had attempted to have done that, like Batman and Robin, or Batman and Robin had Mr. Freeze, Bane, Poison Ivy. Batman Returns had what was it, Penguin and Catwoman, and Batman Forever had the Edward Riddler and Two-Face. But this is one of the earliest kind of examples of them trying to see if they can handle like three villains at the same time. And it's a good effort, again, Harry's new Goblin. I don't mind his new Goblin. Sandman, I really like. I do kind of wish he was the main villain, like he was going to be originally. But you know what? But you know what? Sandman as a villain is still a good villain. in my eyes. And Thomas Hayden Church gives a good performance. The only one that, and the only one to me, I feel like more work needed to be done to like handle these villains together in one place. But overall, really, the only weak villain for me was Venom. I just didn't like Venom. But I don't really blame Raimi for that because I don't really blame Raimi for that because he wasn't. There's this weird thing that goes around the internet where some people have been claiming that Sam Raimi hated Venom, which just isn't true. He didn't hate Venom at all. He just wasn't familiar with Venom. He was more always familiar with more Spider-Man's really classic Rose Gallery, like Goblin, Octopus, Doctor Octopus, and Vulture, and Sandman, and even Electro, and Lizard, to an extent. And Venom probably came around the time he stopped reading comic books, so he wasn't really that familiar. I wouldn't say he hated Venom. I don't know where that rumor came from, but I'd probably say he was just probably more just not familiar with the character, as a lot of people were from the early 2000s, because Venom's more of a 90s early 2000s villain, I would say. Me personally, I feel like now people love Venom, but I feel like when Raimi was growing up, people didn't, because the character probably wasn't written or created by then. And the concept of Venom is good, like having this more kind of darker Spider-Man in a sense, a Spider-Man that went down the path didn't go down the path of great power, the path not taken, essentially. But I do think it's the weakest one. Topher Grace did an okay job with what he did, with what he was given. But again, Sony tried to force Raimi to include Venom in this movie, and he did his best for the character, but he did his best for the character, but at the end of the day, it wasn't the best, and the way the Venom looks in this movie just isn't great. I mean, I prefer the way he looks in the Tom Hardy films, even though the Tom Hardy films are trash. For the way he looks in the Tom Hardy films, I don't like the way Venom looks. I don't like the way he sounds, as well. I don't even like the character of Eddie Brock that much as well. Like, he's just a bit of a sleaze, bit of a slooze, he's a bit of a whimper, really. Like a little bit of a whimper, really. Bit of a whiny brat, pretty much. Which is what they were going for, but I just don't think it worked well for a character like Eddie Brock or Venom. J.J. Jameson, like I said before, good as always, and Kirsten Dunst is great as Mary Jane. I don't like the relationship between her and Peter in this one. I feel like this is the one where it gets very toxic. Like, there's a scene in this movie where Peter hits her, like, just slaps her, and yes, it was accidental because he was throwing security guards off of him, and she was trying to calm him down, and he turned around and did it by accident. It was an accidental, but it's so massively out of character for this version of Peter Parker, and they don't really listen to one another. Well, I feel like in this one, I feel more sorry for MJ than I do Peter. So when she does dump him, even though Harry's forcing her to do it, I can't say I really blame her, because Peter's not a very good boyfriend in this movie. He doesn't listen to her. He doesn't understand where she's coming from, and I get that that's kind of the point. Like, he's so caught up in the love that he has for MJ and the fact that he's finally gotten what he's pretty much always wanted, that he can't, and he's so, and as well as he's so distracted by trying to get justice for Uncle Ben and his killer, the Sandman, he's trying to get justice. He doesn't see what she's going through, or listen to what she's going through. But even then, it's still very, I don't know, I don't like the way it's handled. It's just very toxic. It's extremely toxic. Very problematic as well. This is probably the weakest I feel like Peter and MJ's relationship has been. And I get, if that was the aim, then okay, fair enough. But they doesn't even get a good resolution at the end. They just have this weird dance, and that's it. Great ending. Great ending there, guys. And Toby, he gives a good performance. Not the greatest performance in the world, but it's still a good performance. And again, he nails the Emo Peter stuff. He nails comedy perfectly in this. I love the Emo Peter stuff. I just love the Emo Peter stuff. yeah, so I just love the emo Peter stuff. Like, um, it's just perfect in my opinion. I feel like that's a perfect performance from Toby. But not not as great as his performance in Spider-Man 2, but that yeah, that's okay. The retcon that Sandman killed Uncle Ben is fine, and I get that it's a good kind of. It does feel a little bit trying forcing him and Peter to have a conflict, but I get why they did it, and because it ties into more of the theme of this movie, which is about revenge and getting revenge, but also forgiveness, forgiving people, which I feel like is a really good kind of message to have in a superhero movie. You don't really see that a lot. So when Peter finally forgives um, um, Flint Marco for killing Uncle Ben, because obviously, as he pointed out, it was actually an accident. Um, that he killed Uncle Ben. It was an accidental kind of kill, and excuse me about that. And Peter, Peter forgives him and says, "I forgive you," and it's very heartwarming moment, and it's a good message, and it's a good theme to have in a superhero movie, because you don't really get that a lot in superhero films. I can't remember on top of my head. I can't remember any MCU films where forgiveness and revenge are the main themes. I don't really think so. I mean, look like I can remember of, but who knows? Maybe there are, and I'm just being stupid. But yeah, and I do like the themes, and so the retcon of Ben's killer. I'm fine with that. Harry's amnesia is a bit cheap, a bit soap opera, but it is good. I do why they did it again. Like, they wanted to have scenes where him and Peter were on good terms again, and yeah, for the most part, and yeah, and I completely get why they did it. I do think it's a little bit cheap and a little bit, as I said before, soap opera. Feels like a soap opera thing. But and the fact that he turns back, he gets his memories back, and he goes back to being evil. I liked Evil Harry much more, because I feel like I wish we had a bit more of that in this. Maybe if Harry was just the main villain and just made him the Hobgoblin, which I should have done, because that goblin suit he has in the film is just bad. It's just bad. It just feels it's just bad. They should have just made him the Hobgoblin, and that's it. I just remember one of the lines, actually, when Toby says, when he says, "Look, little Goblin Junior, gonna cry." It's like, oh, that's a good line. That's a good line. I love that line. I don't know why I just remember that. But again, I get why they did the amnesia thing. It's a little bit cheap, but you know what? I can roll with it. Again, like the action sequences, like particularly the emotional moments between Harry and Peter, like when they have that big fight, and then in his mansion, and then Peter cries to, Peter apologizes for scarring his face, and then Harry learns about what really happened to his father. Like, Peter didn't kill his father. By the butler told him, which is weird. You thought the butler would have told him before, but okay. But yeah, and there's some good emotional moments between him and Peter, and when he dies, you do feel that, because they've reconnected, they're friends again, and he finally got his best friend back, and then boom, his best friend's just dead. He's just dead. He dies because Venom kills him, and the same way his dad died, being impaled by his glider, and which is really sad, and really powerful moment, and really quite delves more into the kind of more tragedy of Spider-Man and Peter's life. Again, Mr. Govich, though, was actually Mr. Govich, as I've said before, he's my favorite character in these movies. I can't lie, and he's got some really good moments, like when Peter's walking up the steps after battling Sandman, and then Mr. Govich just goes, "Rent," and Peter's just like, "Not now." Like that. Just I love that line. I love that exchange. And then when Peter he gets a really good scene though. In this movie when Peter yells, does the whole "the damn door" line, and then Mr. Govich is like, "He is good boy. He must be in some kind of trouble." It's like, oh, it's so good to have. There's a scene where Mr. Govich shows that he actually cares about Peter, and he thinks Peter's a good person, which shows again why he puts up with Peter's rent being late all the time, because he deep down inside he knows Peter's a good kid, and he knows he's a good guy, and he just also gets a really good moment when he tries to give him advice for for Mary Jane. I think those are the only two moments that he gets in this, which is sad. But again, I hope they bring him back I hope they bring him back in Tom Holland's second trilogy, the college trilogy, as the landlord, because I just love that. Come on, Marvel! You brought back J.K. Simmons. You can bring back Mr. Dickovich. Bring him back. I miss him. I miss that Russian guy. Miss him. I miss him completely. Bring him back, please. And yeah, I do think the biggest problem with this film is probably the lack of emotional moments. I feel like this film doesn't really have a lot of them compared to the first two, which were just had a ton of good emotional, powerful moments. It has a few, but it does have a few, but the ones that do have, it doesn't have the same gravitas, the same weight as the second film. I feel, I don't know, maybe Spider-Man 2 hit the bar so high, but but I feel like more like emotional, like gut punch moments would have been good, would have been fantastic. The action sequences though were great. The CG and the effects are at their best in this movie, and they've not aged a day. The effects in the very first Spider-Man movie back in 2002, they've definitely aged. Especially the scene where Peter's running on the rooftop and just looks bad. But they've handled it very well. They've nailed it. I think it looks good. The effect, I can't say much about the action sequences. Like Sandman's effects are fantastic, especially for 2007. And it's weird how it's not aged that. It's aged well. Like, it doesn't look. It looks as good as it did back in the day, back in 2007, which was a really long time ago. But again, they were good. They were good action sequences, don't get me wrong. But again, I feel like the same problem with the emotional moments is that they don't have the same gravitas, the same weight as the second film. I feel like they could use a little bit more oomph to them. But they're still good, either the same. And they still build up a lot of good tension, suspense. Like when Peter's fighting Sandman, Sandman's getting washed away in the water, and Peter just goes, "Good riddance." Like that's such that does give you chills down your spine. And the final battle between Goblin, Sandman and Venom team up. That to me is good. That's a good action sequence. Again, it doesn't have the same weight as the second film's emotional action sequences, but but again, like it's not terrible by any means necessary. Christopher Young for the music, he did a good job actually. I actually didn't know that Danny Elfman didn't come back for this one until when I rewatched Spider-Man 3 before No Way Home came out, and I was like, I think I was watching a review of it, and somebody brought up, and I was like, oh, really? Because Christopher Young does a good job just recreating that feeling of Danny Elfman's music. It doesn't feel like it's a completely different person. It feels like it's the same guy. But he does a good job with the music, and some of the sound music choices he puts on there is fantastic. It goes well, like when Peter gets we see Peter in the black suit for the first time, and just goes like that kind of. I love that. I love that music. Even in a ironic sense, I still think it's good. I think Christopher Young did a good job. And overall though, look, Spider-Man 3 is not as bad as they were made out to be. I get why people hated it back in the day, and it's not a masterpiece. It's no masterpiece by any means necessary. It's not a masterpiece by any means necessary, but I still think it's a good solid time. It's a okay end to the trilogy, and I think people's opinions are starting to change. Like people are starting to show a little bit more appreciation for Spider-Man 3, and given the circumstances of what happened behind the scenes and the studio interference and all that stuff. But I still love it. I've got a soft spot for this film. And I still, to this day, I think if you've not watched this movie in a long time, I recommend just giving it another chance. Give it another chance. See how you feel. Just give it one more chance, and you might like it. You might not. And overall, yeah, that was the Sam Raimi trilogy. It's a shame that Spider-Man 4 didn't happen. I really would love to have seen what that was like. But we all know the story right now. At this point, Sony was meddling a little bit too much. Because the thing with studio interference is that all movies have some level of studio interference, because the studios and the creatives, they have to work together. It's a collaborative effort. But I do feel like around this time, Sony was getting a little bit too involved. I feel like with these movies, particularly superhero ones, I feel like it's got to be a 50-50 kind of split between the creatives and the studio heads, the suits, so they can work together in a better environment, and everyone's on the same page and everyone's on the same page. Um, I feel like should have been the case for Spider-Man 4, but Sam Raimi apparently didn't like any of the script drafts they had for Spider-Man 4, and it just wasn't coming together, and so he needed to get a Spider-Man movie out before, I think it was 2012. Otherwise, the rights would revert back to Marvel. Which, for those of you who don't know, back in the day, Marvel did this thing where they would sell the movie rights. Well, they would sell the movie rights to the characters, and the studios had like a time limit to make a new film with that new character. And I think with Spider-Man, it's like 4 to 5 years, and if they don't, the rights went back to Marvel. That's how Blade went back to Marvel, Daredevil went back to Marvel, because they didn't. Fox and who owned Blade? Was it New Line Cinema? I think it was New Line Cinema. They didn't make a new movie with either of those characters for a long time. The expiry date came, and it just went back to Marvel. I think the only exception to this rule is Hulk. There seems to be some weird thing with Hulk where Universal doesn't have to make a new Hulk movie, and they can just keep the rights. But it also explains why Fox kept making X-Men movies, why they kept making Fantastic Four movies, because they had to keep the rights. Because no one wants to be the guy that loses X-Men to Marvel Studios and lets that happen, because that's just bad for business. So that didn't happen. Spider-Man 4 didn't happen, and instead we got The Amazing Spider-Man back in 2012. And for me in this movie, so I loved this movie when it first came out in 2012. I really loved it. I was about 17 years old, and I was going through a lot of personal problems, and I feel like I related to Andrew's Peter Parker a little bit more than Toby's, but I think that's because Andrew's Peter Parker was personally created to fit into the early 2010s, and especially in a high school setting. Because I was in year 12, I think, sixth form. I was in sixth form when this film came out, and going through a lot of problems and personal issues, and so I love this movie for that. 11 years later, I wouldn't say I love it on that same level, but I still like it. I still really like this film. I know that what's happening to this movie is quite weird because, people, when this movie first came out, people loved it. If you said anything negative about this film, you would get just buried by people. I remember when, Samuel or Gavin and other YouTubers would make, negative reviews, and their comment sections would just be littered with people, saying, you're wrong, and all that other stuff, which is dumb because all film is subjective. It doesn't matter about, it's just an opinion. Get over it. I remember Samuel Gavin actually had someone make a fake account pretending to be him, because he didn't like this film, and which was a bizarre time. But that was the level of dedication the fans of the Amazing Spider-Man franchise had for the series. Not the best dedication, but it's quite sad because after the Hollow ones came out, they pretty much did the same thing they did with the Raimi trilogy, which is that they turned their backs on the Dark Web duology, and then they were like, oh no, Amazing Spider-Man, that film's bad now, I've never liked it. When in reality, it's like, come on, man, you were singing its praises like 11 years ago, like, come on, just admit you've changed your opinion, like it's fine, like I've changed mine on Spider-Man 3, so there's no need to try and rewrite history by pretending you didn't like this movie when it came out. And but after No Way Home, people have started to ease more towards this one, at least, rather than not the second one. I don't think so. But the first one, people have started to lean more into again and love again. But I've always liked this film. And I was always open to the idea of a reboot because everyone was hating on this movie when it got announced. But I think that was just because losing, Spider-Man 4 was such a big blow. It got announced, it was confirmed. There was a teaser poster for it, I think, that came out. I'm not too sure. There was a poster for it. There was a poster that had the number 4 in it, and there was like a broken web. It was over New York City. I don't know if that was a fan-made poster. I think was it official or was that fan-made? I'm not too sure. But that came out, and people were making like fan-made posters with Carnage in it and people were excited to see Toby back, and they even announced a Spider-Man 5 and 6, which is crazy. But that was how dedicated Sony was to keeping this brand alive, and yes, and it just didn't happen, unfortunately. And yeah, so that people kind of in the heat. There was a heat of the moment. The hate this movie was getting when it got announced was kind of the heat of the moment. People are a bit like, it's too soon to reboot. It's too soon, even though Batman got rebooted 8 years after Batman and Robin, and Hulk got rebooted 5 years after the Ang Lee Hulk movie. So that doesn't really hold a lot of water, and especially nowadays, that too soon reboot excuse doesn't really hold a lot of water now, because that's the way Hollywood is. They'll announce a reboot like 2 years later. Like, we're getting a new Hellboy movie, and the last Hellboy movie that came out was 2019. 4 years later, we're getting another one. Like, that's Hollywood's willing to reboot things like that quickly. We're getting a new Ninja Turtles movie, even though the last Ninja Turtles movie came out 2016, Out of the Shadows, and now we're getting an animated one, which I'm really looking forward to. By the way, I think that movie looks pretty sick. But I was always into the idea of a reboot. I wasn't hating on it or anything. I didn't really get the hate. Well, I got the hate, but I didn't really understand like the amount of hatred. But yeah, overall, I still really like The Amazing Spider-Man. I think it's a good movie. What I think I like most about it is the fact that it doesn't really feel like a full-on superhero film. This feels like an independent superhero drama, and that's what I quite like about it. I feel like that's when Mark Webb's kind of in his element. He's able to add some slight, because obviously they're going for, when they start off with this series, they were going for a more grounded, realistic kind of approach, similar to the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, which is fine. That could work with Spider-Man. Obviously they didn't stick to it, with the sequel, which we'll get to. But that was, and he made Peter Parker feel like a real kid, at least from the early 2010s. Especially like with the hair and his attitudes and his mannerisms and his motifs. And honestly, Andrew Garfield, I love Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I think Andrew Garfield is a great Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Again, I feel sorry that people turned their backs on him when when Tom Holland films came in, because I remember when Andrew got fired from the Spider-Man franchise, and I remember there was that hashtag running around, people running around with that was saying, we keep Andrew Garfield. That was it, because I think that was when rumors of them doing a deal with Marvel was coming into fruition, and people wanted Andrew to stay, because that's how much people liked Andrew Garfield. But it's a shame that people people turn their backs on him after Tom Holland came in. Let's not say Tom Holland's a bad Spider-Man. Tom Holland's a great Spider-Man. But I just feel bad for Andrew. But I'm pretty sure Andrew doesn't care. Like, I'm sure he's living his life. Andrew Garfield is living his best life right now. But I love his version of the character. I love the more witty, kind of funny, kind of ad-libs he gives this character. I love how this focuses a little bit more on Peter Parker's more arrogant kind of side, which was kind of there in the comic books. The decisions and the choices he makes, and the intentions and everything as well. I find it quite interesting. And his mannerisms as well. Like, he's quite, at the start of the film, he's quite twitchy and quite, extroverted. And by the end of the movie, he's more like moving like a proper human being, which has a lot of good development for his character. I like how the abandonment of his parents. I like how it focused more into the abandonment of his parents. The actual conclusion to that, at least in TASAM 2, wasn't fantastic, but I do like how they tried to bring his parents into it, and how they showed how him being abandoned affected him badly. How he's got a good connection with May and Uncle Ben, but not in the same way you would have with your parents or as a loved one. Like, there is mother and father, there is parental figures, but because he got abandoned when he was like 7 or 8, I think, he's still got those fresh memories in his mind about his dad and his mum. And so that's it kind of shows that no matter how much he loves Aunt May and Uncle Ben, they'll never fit those shoes, so to speak. Even though he tells Uncle Ben, you're a good dad. Like, that lovely scene with him and Uncle Ben, Martin Sheen, he's I like the idea that he's more of a loner than an outcast. Like, he could be popular if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to. Like, he's willing to stick up for the little guy as well. Like, he sticks up for that kid who's getting bullied by Flash. And I get people's like, he's a bit too cool, like the skateboard and everything. But I do like his version of Peter Parker, and I love his version of Spider-Man. I think that he was able to translate the more witty, jokey side of that character over a lot better than Tobey Maguire's. But then again, Tobey Maguire wanted to focus on those movies want to focus on a different aspect of Spider-Man, the more drama and elements of him. And I know people say like, "Oh, he's too handsome. You can't buy him being bullied." But at the end of the day, I mean, if you're a loner, if you're an extrovert, doesn't matter how good looking you are, you're gonna get picked on. People are gonna find something to pick on you about. Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy, fantastic love interest. So like a big improvement over Mary Jane from the previous films. I like the chemistry between her and Andrew. Though the fact that they were dating in real life probably helps by it a lot. I love they just make a very cute couple, and she supports him, she looks after him, but she's very strong. But she's still a very strong character, like she is a very strong character though, and she helps him through, she helps him make the cure for Dr. Connors. She helps him fight off Dr. Connors, like in the school. She sticks up for herself. She defends herself. I don't think. Is there any point she needs? She doesn't even need. I don't think there's no point in the first Amazing Spider-Man film where he saves her. Like she saves herself. Like I think at one point she saves him. Yeah, she does save him. Like she whacks Connors with the trophy. Like it's she's such a good character, and I love Gwen in these movies. And in these movies, and it's sad that we saw her die. It's sad we saw her die in the second one, which we'll get to. I mean, it's a good emotional moment, don't get me wrong, but I just wish they held that off for like a third film or something like that. I really do hope that I've got my fingers crossed that if they ever do a live action Spider-Woman movie, that they bring Emma Stone back. I know they'd have to age the character up, but I feel like I want Emma Stone back as Gwen Stacy. I just want her back, like she's that good at that character. And yeah, she's definitely one of the better love interests of the Spider-Man films. And the chemistry of Andrew is perfect, and she looks, they've made her look like comic book accurate as well with the hair and everything. And I like the connection with her family as well, like Captain Stacy as well. Like she respects her dad, but she's also like she has that where she opens up to Peter about how she's always been scared. This one day her dad's never going to come home, which obviously is a foreshadowing his death later on in the film. And it's just very impactful. It's a very impactful scene. Sally Field and Martin Sheen were great as Uncle Ben and Aunt May. They really sorry about that. Excuse me. They were very believable as a you bought the, much like Cliff Robinson and Rosemary Harris. You brought that these two were an old married couple. They've been married for years. They've gotten to know each other for years. They love each other. They walk, they talk, but there's a little bit more grounded. There's a little bit, because obviously this movie's more grounded in realism. It's a little bit more grounded, I would say. Like there's like that scene where they're arguing about plumbers. Like which old couple is like having like it's a small little argument, not a big massive argument, but like like how many of your parents or uncles and aunts have had like that very same argument. And it's very sweet and very wholesome. And so when Martin Sheen's Uncle Ben dies, like you feel it, you really do feel it. And I think that's mostly for Andrew's performance, but also Sally Field's performance as Aunt May. I feel like she made a really good Aunt May. I wouldn't say she does a lot in these films. They try and give her stuff to do, but she doesn't have like. I feel like Rosemary Harris did a lot more stuff in terms of emotional weight for Peter, like giving him speeches and everything, and giving him like wise pep talks on the hero and all of us. Obviously Sally Field tries to do that. Like when she tells him about secrets, like secrets have a cost, not for free. They try and give her stuff to do. They try and give her stuff to do, but she is good in this role. Like you do like her as Aunt May, and you really feel it when when Ben gets shot. And it's a very gruesome death. It's much more gruesome than the Raimi films. But again, I guess that's probably due to the fact that this is supposed to be a bit more grounded in reality. Apart from the fact that there's a giant walking lizard running around. But okay, we'll get to him when we get to him. Oh god, the lizard. The rest of the cast though were great. Flash was great. I loved the character development he got. Like he went from bullying Peter to being his friend by the end. I love that. I liked the classmates and all the other extras, and like the for the other Oscorp employee. I cannot remember his name. But he's played by one of the actors from Slumdog Millionaire. He was good. It's just a shame that he just randomly disappears at the end. Right? He just randomly disappears at the end. Like, well, not even at the end. He just appears halfway through, just during that bridge scene, isn't it? When Peter's catching the cars with the webs and sticking them on the bridge. Like he just randomly disappears after that. I know there was a deleted scene, but if it ain't in the movie, it ain't in the movie. I don't know. I wish he kind of came back or something. What happened to him? What happened to him? Did he live? Did he die? Like he hit his head on the windscreen. But I don't know. That's weird. The crane operator. I mean, the crane scene is a bit cheesy. I can't lie. But to be fair, I do like a bit of cheese in my Spider-Man films. So and like the crane operator. I liked how they brought him back to contribute to the plot a little bit more. Like, especially the final scene where Spider-Man's trying to get to the Oscorp Tower, and because he saved his son earlier in the film during the bridge scene, and it just creates this more sweet and sort of wholesome moment. And that's just a wholesome moment in general, because that's the scene where Peter finally realizes who he is, that he is Spider-Man. Like, that's the first time they ask him, who are you? And that's when he first says, I'm Spider-Man, and he just webs off, and it's just it's perfect. And the music in this, we'll get to the music, but the other rest of the cast, they did really well for what they were given. And who is it? The guy that voices Diego in the Ice Age films. Dennis Miller? Not Dennis Miller. I'm going to look this up. Hang on. I'm going to look this up. Fuck it. Let's do this. We're doing this live. Not even live. I'm recording this on Audacity, for God's sake. Let's have a quick look. Let's have a look. Dennis Leary, that's it. Dennis Leary. Dennis Leary was great as Captain Stacy, and you really did feel his death was quite effective for me. You really felt the impact that he died, particularly when he tells Peter, keep Gwen out of it, like basically telling him, don't see Gwen, keep her away from your life. You can't see Gwen anymore. And Andrew just leaves out that massive scream where he's like, he's got to lose the one he loves. And obviously by the end he doesn't do it, but and you do get the feeling of but you get the idea that he's a cop, but he wants to do good. So I like the theme of let's talk about the themes in the movie. Like, I like the theme of mystery and abandonment. Like Peter's looking for his parents, but particularly mystery as well. Like, there's a lot of mysteries. Like, he's trying to solve the mystery of his parents. Norman Osborn's kept in shadow a lot. Like, you see built like billboards of him like kept in the shadows. Like the man in hat. The mystery of who's he. There's a much bigger. I like the idea. There's a much bigger conspiracy going on, between underneath the realms of Oscorp, in the Oscorp building. There's a much more. Yeah, there's a much more bigger kind of conspiracy kind of going on there, and I quite like that, and I quite like the whole like mystery kind of almost spy thriller edge that this movie has, where Peter's trying to figure it out, and he doesn't figure it out completely right away, but and also him trying to find out who's Uncle Ben's killer is, because he doesn't find out in this movie. But even then, like that does lead to a good scene at the table when Captain Stacy's like, well, Spider-Man, constantly harassing guys that all look the same. He's not helping people, he's hurting people, and that kind of motivates Peter to kind of accept that I'm not ever going to find the killer, and I'm never going to find Uncle Ben's killer, but I need to do better with these powers. Like, great power, great responsibility. And the action in this movie is great. I feel like the swing in this. Oh wow, talking to the microphone directly there. But I feel like the swinging in this movie is probably some of the best. Probably maybe even the best the swinging has been in these movies. And yeah, like the more practical effects they use for them, as well as the CGI they do use for the swinging. To enhance the effect. It enhances it well, and it looks really good. It's not that many action sequences in this, but they were focusing. I think they wanted to focus more on the character, on developing the characters rather than action sequences. Which but the action sequences we get are really good. Like having the scene where Spider-Man's finding the lizard at school, and he's like crawling around him like a spider, like whipping him up. Like, that's pretty cool. And yeah, one thing I want to get into though that I've never really understood is so obviously with these comic book movies, they're not really based on the comic books. They're more inspired by them. Like the creators will take a run or a series of one particular character, and then they'll use that as their inspiration to help them build the world and create and tell the story that they want to tell. Um, and for this movie, for some reason, there was always a comparison with Ultimate Spider-Man, the Ultimate Spider-Man comic books, which I never really got. If anything, after watching, I mentioned this earlier, but after watching the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series, I feel like that series has more in common with this series of movies than than they do with the Ultimate comic books, because like you got Gwen Stacy not only being Peter's first love interest, but you also have it being an intern at Oscorp. It's more grounded, it's more contemporary, it's set in modern day. All the villains are created by Oscorp. Even stuff like Andrew's like Spider-Man looks a lot more like how Josh Keaton's Spider-Man looked in Spectacular Spider-Man. There's even a scene where he's dressed almost identically the same. I think it's the scene where Peter's on the rooftop doing his homework. You put them side by side, and with Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, like the Avengers are more involved in that series, and Nick Fury is more involved in that series, and Sony didn't have the rights to use the character at the time. And a bunch of other stuff as well. I mean, yeah, granted, like the darker tone, that could be like I feel like maybe they've borrowed stuff from Ultimate Spider-Man, but I wouldn't say it was inspired by it. I would say Spectacular Spider-Man was more the main inspiration for this series of movies. But but who knows? Like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Let's go on to the weaker parts of the film. So, the lizard. I've said this before in the MCU Phase 4 recap, but I'm going to say it again. The lizard is the weakest part of this film, and he is by far the worst Spider-Man villain ever put to film. Like, this version of the lizard, at least. Like, he's dull, he's boring, he's just one note, he feels very like a stock villain. There's nothing interesting about him, and all the other interesting stuff like Dr. Collins' family and his wife and his kids, which they were cast in this movie. They've all been cut out now, and it's like, oh wow, so all the interesting stuff about his characters has been removed, and now he just feels like a generic one-note villain. And the look as well. I mean, it's horrible. It looks terrible. Like, what happened here? I mean, like, I get that the lizard had a flat face when he first got introduced in the comic books, and the snout came later. But why not keep the snout? Like, keep it. Like, I know that, I don't know, and it's weird because originally they were going to go for the snout. When this movie got screened at, the screen footage at Comic-Con 2011, that's when Andrew made his big emotional kind of Spider-Man speech, when he was dressed in the fan-made Spider-Man costume before he went on stage. When they showed footage of the lizard. It was footage which ended up getting cut as well. This scene ended up getting deleted. It was a scene where he bursts through the girls' bathroom doors, and he walks up to these girls and he goes, "Hello, my dears," or something like that. Which of course this scene ended up getting deleted from the film, which is crazy that something that got shown at Comic-Con ended up getting removed. Okay. I don't know. Maybe that's happens a lot. I don't know. But I never really heard about it until these two movies anyway. And then so it gets cut, and in that scene, the lizard has a snout. He has the snout. You can find pictures of this online, because it leaked. Someone took a picture and put it online, and he has the snout. He has a snout, and for some reason, halfway through the movie, they changed it to a flat face. I don't know what the point was. Like, maybe they were thinking of, he starts off with a flat face, but then the further along he goes, like the more he takes the serum, the more animalistic he gets, the more his face starts to resemble the snout. Or maybe they try the snout and thought, actually, you know what, this isn't going to work, because obviously he does talk. The lizard does talk in this movie, so maybe it just looked too goofy and didn't fit in well with the realism that we're trying to incorporate in this film. But either way, like, the actual look of the lizard just looks terrible, and I don't know, why does he have to talk? Like, wouldn't it be more scarier if he just acted like a lizard and not spoke? But he, like, did he need, like, I don't know, like, I just don't know. Lizard is just a terrible villain in general. Like, even when they brought him back from No Way Home, he was still weak. And they didn't even give him the snout on that one either. Like, they fucking gave Electro an upgrade, but they didn't give the Lizard a snout. Like, come on, give Marvel, if you ever do the Lizard again, give him a snout. Damn it, give him a snout. And moving on to talking about deleted scenes, like there were so many deleted scenes, like, and do agree on that's normal for movies to have and trailers to have scenes that end up getting pulled from movie theaters. But with this film in particular, it was much more. I feel like if it's not noticeable, like if you don't notice it, like it's not going to affect you. But like it's very noticeable because they were like, there were scenes in the trailers that were very clearly going. Like, like when the guy from Oscorp that I was talking about, who's played by the actor from Slumdog Millionaire, and he goes, "Oh, do you even know the truth about your father? Do you know who you really are?" Like that kind of thing. Like that's cut from the film. That was like they put such a big emphasis on that scene, and it's just like what? It's lines like when Dr. Connors goes, "Oh, if you want the truth about your parents, come and get it." Like that was removed, and it's just one of those things where it's like, well, what was the post production for this film here? Was there even a picture lock for this? When did picture lock get called? Because I really want to know. And left quite a few plot holes in there, which I don't know. Maybe they were thinking of, oh, we'll keep the parents thing out and leave that for the sequel, which ended up backfiring completely. Which we'll get to that. But that can wait. Oh, that can wait. What else say? Like at points, it felt like at points. I do love this movie. Don't get me wrong, but there were points when I was rewatching it that it felt a bit like a TV pilot. If like particularly with the opening credits sequence as well, like it felt very TV-esque. Like it didn't feel like, maybe it's because I'm so used to like the big, huge Raimi movies where it's like, like the big Sam Raimi movies where these big grand like opening kind of title sequences and everything else as well. Like when you get to one that's a bit more basic and quick, it's just a bit like, oh, okay. Like it just felt at some points it just did feel very TV piloty. Like some of the editing choices and stuff like that just felt like a bit like a TV pilot at times, for like a made for TV movie. Let's see what else they not like. Peter Parker's suit. I mean, I liked it when I first saw it back in the day, but honestly, and I do like how they try to make it look a bit more like a suit that he would make himself at home, rather than the previous suits where it just looked too Hollywood. Didn't look like something that he would make, that a kid who doesn't have enough money doesn't have a lot of money would make. But I do prefer the one in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think TASAM 2's suit is just much better. It just makes this one look a bit tame by comparison. But I do like how, like, especially during the battle, it gets like gruffed and dirty and everything. There was also another thing as well. Like, so obviously, like, this film did get a good reception when it came out, but it did get its fair share of detractors, which is fine because that happens in every movie. And again, people did feel quite like people were still in like the heat of the moment when the Raimi universe wasn't going ahead anymore, and everything and all that stuff. But there were times when I felt like people would just make stuff up about this film, even when it came out. Like this scene, for example, that I've got here. So there's a scene where Peter's looking for Uncle Ben's killer. He's going every night, and he's just stalking Uncle Ben's killer. He's getting into fights with these guys that resemble Uncle Ben's killer, but they're not really Uncle Ben's killer. And he comes home one night, and he's bruised, and he's bad. He's got his hoodie up so Aunt May doesn't see it. And then he sneaks into the thing, and then Aunt May is like, "Did you get the eggs?" And he goes, "Oh, no, I didn't. I'll go out and get them now." And Aunt May stops him, and then he takes his hood off, and then she's like, "Oh, who did this to you?" And then there's a scene where he tells her, "Oh, please, Aunt May, please go to sleep." It's that scene where he tells Aunt May to go to sleep. And I remember that film came out, and people were going, "Oh, he's a dick. He shouted at Aunt May." And it's like, no, he did not. He did not shout at Aunt May. Where did he shout at Aunt May? Like, where? Like, go back and rewatch the scene. Like, he doesn't. He very softly and very, but very emotionally begs her to go to sleep because he doesn't want her seeing him like this. He doesn't want her seeing him all bad and bruised and swollen and from these fights that he's been having. He doesn't want her to worry about him because she's still upset about the death of Uncle Ben, and it's just one of those things where I don't get where the whole screaming thing came from. And there was that thing as well where people claim that he nicked the web shooters or something from Oscorp, and Not really. I think even Seven Webheads back in the day did a video, about as late as like 2016, I think, or 2015, completely debunking that whole thing with him stealing the web shooters. I don't know. And there were some stuff like, yeah, like he did steal, like he did take someone else's identity so he could sneak into Oscorp, um, and stuff like that. And but even then, I feel like some people made stuff up about this film to try and like get others to hate it, which is, I don't know. I don't like that. Like, if you want to critique a film, to critique stuff that actually happens in the film. That's all I'm saying. Um, the final fight between Peter and the Lizard is pretty good. There's a lot of tension and a lot of suspense during that fight. When he breaks Peter's mechanical web shooters, which I much prefer to the organic ones. By the way, I like how I like how it shows Peter's more. I like how this series particularly showed Peter's more, his intellect a little bit more, and the Tom Holland ones did that good as well, showing his intellect and how smart he is, by the fact that he built his own web shooters. And the final fight between him and Lizard is good, like when he breaks his web shooter, and Peter's in quite a lot of pain, and he's trying to get the cure out so he can like cure Doc Connors and the people that Doc Connors has infected with the lizard serum. I did find Lizard's plan to turn everyone into giant lizards a little bit silly, particularly for this film, considering how it's supposed to be, grounded in reality. But I guess it's fine. I guess it's what he did in the comic book, so all right. But yeah, the final fight was fine. The action was really good, and it was tension and suspense and everything. And the whole thing of Peter and Gwen, when he decides, actually, I'm going to be with her, it's such a nice conflict to the second movie, which the second film pretty much ruins, which we'll get to in just a second. One last thing I'll say about this movie, though, the score by James Horner. Really great. I love the score. I love the theme from this movie, the da-na-na-na. That's always been that's my favorite theme on the Amazing Spider-Man duology. I much prefer this theme to the one in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, which we'll get to, I guess, in just a second. But overall, look, Amazing Spider-Man 1, I still like it. I still think it's a good movie. I still find it very enjoyable. If you haven't seen it in a while and you don't think it's a good movie anymore, I highly recommend give it another chance, give it another try. You may find you might like it, but if you don't, then that's perfectly fine. And yeah, so let's get on to The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Oh boy, god, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Yeah, I don't like this film. In fact, I would go as far as to say this is the worst Spider-Man movie. If you exclude the spin-offs, if you exclude Venom 2 and Morbius, this is the worst one for me. And it took me a long time to kind of get to that conclusion, because I remember when I first saw this film, I just didn't know what to think of it. I was just so, like, conflicted on, do I like it, do I not like it? Like, for me, it's just, I don't know where I landed, but over the years, I've landed more on, yeah, I don't like this movie. I just don't like it. It's way too convoluted, there's too much going on. Even, like, at least with Spider-Man 3, yeah, Spider-Man 3 had a lot going on, but there was at least a good attempt to try and weave it all together, to try and weave a good narrative together. This one is just too convoluted, and there's too much setting up. This is the problem with this movie. It focuses too much on setting up a cinematic universe than telling a good story. And it's just one of those things where, like, I don't even know why Sony wanted to do a cinematic universe based on one guy. I mean, yeah, I get the Spider-Man's massive Rose Gallery now, we've got the Spider-Verse now, so I guess they could do it now, but even their most recent attempt, with the spin-offs, like the Venom spin-off and the Morbius spin-off, like, they're crap. Like, they're not good. Like, just, how about, instead of focusing on, like, building a universe, focus on making good movies? I'm just saying. It's just terrible. And the villains in this movie they're not as bad as Lizard. Lizard is always going to be the worst, but they're not great. Electro is not great. Rhino, why was he even here? And Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn was just the actual, like, when he gets turned to the Goblin, it looked terrible. It looked bad. Like, it just looked bad, and because everything's going on, you don't really get to know them as characters. So you don't really, when they turn bad, like when Electro goes evil halfway through the film, we don't know that much about Maxwell Dillon to really care. Oh, sorry about that. Don't really know much about Max Dillon to really give a shit. When he turns to Electro, And same thing with Harry Osborn. We don't really get to know him and Peter. We don't really get to know their bond. And so when he does turn to the Goblin, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, you're the Goblin now. I don't really feel anything. Am I supposed to feel something here? Like, it's just terrible, really. Electro is so bad in this. Because again, I'm not sure how am I supposed to feel about this. Because he's geek. He's like this weird Edward Nygma, Batman Forever kind of thing, the geeky thing. Doesn't really work. I'm not too sure. Like, am I supposed to find him funny or am I supposed to find him tragic? Because he lives on his own. He was supposed to live with his mother, but they've changed that last minute, I think. Or maybe it was probably just doing reshoots. But he lives with his mum, and his mum's he doesn't live with his mum. That was taken out. He lives on his own, and he's a big Spider-Man fan. He's obsessed with Spider-Man, like obsessed with Spider-Man. But it's just one of those things where it's like, you see him like shaving, he's talking to himself, and it's just one of those things where it's like, what am I supposed to feel here? Like, am I supposed to feel sorry for you? Am I supposed to find you tragic? Am I supposed to laugh at you? Like, what's going on here? And then like that scene where he's talking to the Oscar employee about saying, "Oh, it's my birthday. I was thinking of going home." Like, and he's like, oh no, it was about the power grid. He was like, "Oh yeah, I built this power grid, and I should get credit for that." And the Oscar employee he's talking to is like, "Oh yeah, and I'm Spider-Man." And and there's that thing where he imagines himself grabbing him by the shirt and just like screaming and going, "I'm gonna rip Golden head off," and stuff like that. And then it cuts back to him like and that bit. I'm just like, again, what am I supposed to feel here? Like, am I supposed to be freaked out? Am I supposed to like find it funny? Am I supposed to like what's going on here? So it's just one of those things where I don't really know how am I supposed to feel about it. So when he turns into Electro and goes for that big transformation with the eels and everything, which again, like Spectacular Spider-Man connection there, like Electro got turned into Electro because of electric eels. Just saying. And it's just one of those things where it's like, again, what am I supposed to feel about him? Like, because I don't really get what I'm supposed to do. It's like the Edward Nygma thing just doesn't work, and it's one of those things where maybe if they went a bit more, if they took it a little bit more seriously rather than adding this weird comedy kind of weird. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, if they like had him where he's just this loner and he's this loser and he gets maybe I'd feel a bit more sorry for him. But the fact that they do this thing where they make him this massive Spider-Man fanboy, massive weirdo, is just a bit, I don't know. It doesn't work for me. Harry as well just feels very undeveloped. You don't really, like I said before, you don't really buy the connection between him and Peter. Like, I get they're long lost friends. They've been separated for years. He's gotten off the boarding school. But it's just one of those things where it's like why? Like, what am I supposed to feel for you? Like, as I don't buy the connection between you and Peter. So when you get turned, so when you're like, and then the whole, oh, you've got the Osborn curse, oh, you're dying, and it's like, okay, what? And they don't even say what the illness is. Like, what is this illness that him and Orlin Osborn have? Like, they even say it. I don't remember them ever specifying this illness. Like, what is this illness? Like, what is this illness? And he's dying and something like that, and you just don't feel for him because you get told this as soon as you see him, and it's like, I've not had time to like get to know you. Maybe if they establish the Osborn curse later on in the film, like you meet Harry and then he learns about the Osborn curse or the generic disease, and he finds out this is what your father died of, this is what you're gonna die from. And I don't really understand like his whole thing of, oh yeah, I haven't got much time because Norman died when he was in his 40s. How old is Norman in this movie? 30s or 40s or 50s, I would say. I feel also sorry for Chris Cooper because he did a good job with what he was given. The little Norman Osborn thing, did a good job with that. But maybe they can bring him back for the MCU Norman Osborn, because I actually wouldn't mind that. I feel like we've seen enough Defoe. Let's give Chris Cooper another go. Let's give him his moment to shine. Because he was wasted in this. Because he's such a great actor, and he was a good Norman Osborn. Like the scene with him and Harry when he's on his deathbed, as well as the scenes of him and Richard Parker in the flashback tapes. Those were really good scenes, and he could have played a really great and compelling Norman Osborn. It was just the film just didn't let him. They killed him off at the beginning, and yeah. But the scene between him and Harry, that's probably the only good scene with Harry in this movie. The rest of it, I just don't buy it. I don't buy the relationship between him and Peter and the friendship or the lost friendship, because they don't really show a lot of time of him and Peter actually getting to know each other again. Like, so when Peter goes to when he goes, oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to save Harry because he's my best friend, and it's like, but we've barely seen you spend any time with him. Like, what? I don't know. And then the whole him being turned into the Goblin thing is just, it's out of left field. It feels last minute. It feels rushed, and the actual look, just the armor looks okay, I guess, but the actual face, like the splotches and the teeth, and it looks like, what am I looking at here? Is this from David Bowie's Labyrinth or something? What is going on? And yeah, I like the idea of him transforming into an actual goblin, because that was in the Ultimate comic books. I wouldn't mind that if they ever brought Norman back in the MCU. I would like if they took that approach, but the way it looked in this film just looked off to me. But apart from Harry's look, the effects looked good. It's got some good. The visual effects in this are really good. They're really outstanding. And they're great. The color palette, I love it. I love how it looks. It looks like a comic book, and I really like that. Like, it looks like it's big, it's bright, and they've gone back to the big bright colors. But they've done their own kind of thing with it. Like, they've not just copied the Raimi's big bright colors. They've taken away the orange tint, the much more warmer orange tint, and kind of add more brightness to it, and more kind of yellow brightness. And it just feels and looks like a comic book. Like the scene, and there are times when it does feel a little bit like a video game, like when Spider-Man's following Electro's electric pattern. It does feel a little bit like a video game. It's like, let's get the controllers out, let's play it. But for the most part, the effects are great. Andrew's new suit is perfect. It's very slick. The eyes are fantastic. I'm glad that that's the suit they brought back from No Way Home. The lighter tone that this movie has, compared to the first, which is more dark and grittier, it doesn't contrast very well. It contrasts quite badly. It makes the world feel very inconsistent, because before they were going for grounded, gritty, Christopher Nolan Dark Knight realism, a more contemporary kind of Earth, kind of universe, and now suddenly we're jumping into a more goofy, light-hearted, fun, brightly lit world full of that's embracing the comic booky esque stuff about it, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but it just kind of one of those things where it's like, it just feels very inconsistent. It feels like a reboot. It feels like a soft reboot of a reboot, which is a bit confusing. And that's kind of like, you don't really want to have a soft reboot within your reboot, like, basically, because people have done that before and it's not worked. Like, they tried that with the old Batman films. We had the Tim Burton ones, and then you had Joe Schumacher come in and do a bit of a soft reboot like to it, and just a bit like, oh, okay. And yeah, all that Ninja Turtles movie, that Michael Bay produced Ninja Turtles films, where they did a little bit of a soft reboot with that. But I guess that was kind of more warranted, because that first Michael Bay TMNT movie was just terrible, just not good at all. So yeah, it's a bit like, it's a bit inconsistent. Maybe if they change, I feel like they do just changed a few things from the first one, but not everything from the first one. Like, if they changed a couple of stuff but kept the gritty tone, then probably would have been we probably would have had a better film. And also, like, not focus so much on building a cinematic universe. But what can you do? But yeah, like as I said, it's too busy setting up a cinematic universe, and it's confusing. It makes the film seem really stuffed and unfocused. And it's like, you can't create a cinematic universe based on one guy. You just can't. Like, yeah, we got the Spider-Verse, cool. So what? Like, you really telling me we can build an entire cinematic universe based on one man, based on Spider-Man? Like, and just looking at Sony's second attempt at doing this with the Venom spin-offs and the Morbius spin-offs, and it's just showing, like, again, like, this concept of creating a cinematic universe based on Spider-Man, one property, just doesn't work. And I just feel like maybe just focus on telling a story rather than setting up a cinematic universe, because not everything needs to be a cinematic universe. And that's one of the things I've talked about this before at length, but I'm getting sick and tired of cinematic universes now. I'm just getting sick and tired of them. I miss the days when films were just standalone. You could just sit your ass down and just watch a movie. You don't have to watch, fucking five other movies to, like, understand the plot. It was cool when the MCU did it, but now everyone's doing it. Everyone's been trying to do it, and lots of people have backed away from that, except for Sony. Sony's still trying, and I don't know why. But it just, and again, because you try and start the cinematic universe, you get movies like this. Movies like this that are too stuffed and too kind of like filled to the brim of like too much going on, and it's just I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. Peter and Gwen, they're good as always. Andrew and Emma, great chemistry as always. But again, like the whole break, like the Will They Won't They breaking up thing, it's so old now. We had that with the Raimi films, and the best thing about the first film was Peter and Gwen's chemistry. Like, why do we have to do another Will They Won't They thing? Like, no, like just why not just have them be a couple, please? I know, like yeah, give them problems and kind of just overcome. Like like maybe Peter is starting to feel a bit of regret and a bit of doubt because he because he obviously like he didn't do what Captain Stacy asked him to do, which is stay away from Gwen, and he did the exact opposite of that. But like maybe because he's older now and he's graduating from high school and he's going to college, which is not very believable because Andrew turned 30 when he filmed this movie, and he looks 30 in this movie. So it's a bit weird seeing a 30-year-old man being a college student, which obviously you get people in your 30s going to college anyway, but even then, like you I don't know, like it's a bit weird. But like maybe give him like maybe he is starting to feel guilt, and maybe he tries to end the relationship, but he just can't bear himself to do it. Or just give him can just overcome, but not this whole will they won't they thing. Cause it's so old. It's old. We saw this last time in the Raimi films with Peter and MJ, and that's what people didn't like about Peter and MJ in the last film, and people liked Peter and Gwen. I get what they were trying to do, but I just didn't like it. Gwen's death, again, I feel like it came way too early. I feel like they could save it for the third film. Obviously, we didn't get a third film, but so maybe that was lucky, I guess. That they did this before instead of saving it for a third film. I mean, but even so, it's still very emotional. It's still very powerful. And one of the very few good scenes in this film, I would say. And yeah, and Andrew, you really buy Andrew's performance, like when he's crying and he's just so upset, like he's lost the love of his life, and it's all his fault that he lost her. Like he failed her, he couldn't save her. Like he says in No Way Home, that's why they gave him a redemption arc in No Way Home. Like I couldn't save her. I'll never forgive myself for that. And yeah, I really like that. Aunt May was barely in it, and she didn't really contribute a lot. There was this kind of weird subplot with the nursing, with her being a nurse. There was a nice scene where there was the "You're My Boy" scene when she finds him doing the spider web of trying to figure out what happened with his parents, which I'll get to in a second because that is just that's just bizarre, and just laughable really. And she goes, "You're my boy, and he has to comfort her and go, "Look, don't get it twisted. You're enough for me," and that's a nice moment that she got. But everything else, she just wasn't in the film. Like she just, I don't know, like she just wasn't in the movie. Where was Martin Sheen? Because Martin Sheen said he was going to be in this movie, and he never showed up. Like I think he was going to show up in like a flashback scene or something, but because I remember him confirming it on a talk show, and then just didn't have him. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, like, and then I mean, and there's that scene where she was like, "All right, guys, we're back in the hospital when the power goes down," and it's just one of the things where it's like, "Why are you saying that? You didn't do anything. You didn't really do anything. Like, we didn't see you do anything." So yeah, I just thought, nah, it's Sally Field was great in this role, like she was in the last film, but she didn't get a lot to do, and I feel like that's probably, and that kind of explains why she doesn't have a great fondness for these two movies. And I understand that because when you've got a legend like Sally Field and you give her nothing to do, I mean that's just a mistake in of itself. You've got to give Sally Field something to do here. And woman's a legend. This is like an on-screen presence, on-screen legend. And she's not doing anything. Like, come on, like give us something to work with. And the nursing thing was just never focused on. It just was never focused on. Peter's parents just felt like an afterthought. Honestly, that opening scene on the plane is laughable. Like it's laughable. It's not. There's no tension. There's no suspense. It's just laughable, really. Like when like the guy kills the driver, and then then the driver just pulls the lever down, and the plane starts going down. It's like, wait, you're doing that now? Didn't the Oscorp agent kill you like 2 seconds ago. You didn't do that straight away. What? Did he poison you? What was going on here? Um, so it was just felt like it was just laughable, that plane sequence. How the fuck did Richard Parker upload that video with that crappy plane internet? Is there even internet when they left? What year is this? Which year is this exactly? Like, I don't know. It's laughably bad, and the whole thing about Peter's dad putting his own venom in the DNA of the spiders, and it's just not a great. It's not a great. I think that's what he did anyway. I could be wrong, but there's something about his DNA and everything, and it's not a great revelation. You can see it coming from a mile away. It feels a lot like Ang Lee's Hulk, and for me, it just didn't. It's not a great revelation. And the thing with the train, like he had a secret laboratory on a train, like a fucking train. Really, you got to put little coins in to activate. Like what? What is this? Like how? What? And he sends the video to that, and it's like, why not send it to the FBI or like agency thing? What? I don't know. And the script for this movie it's just terrible. It's awful. This is some of the worst written. This is some of the worst written Spider-Man. This is one of the worst scripts I've ever seen. Like I was saying in the first episode, like some of the dialogue in this just feels like bad, like really bad. Like I said, the "now it's time to light my candle" line that Electro says. It's like, what? Like who says that? Like I remember facepalming in the cinema when I heard that line. And then I remember the guy that was like the friend that I was with was sitting next to me, and he just looked at me and went, "Yeah, that just happened. That just got said." Some of the dialogue in this is just terrible. Some of the writing is just all exposition, and it's just based on coincidences as well. So like, like Gwen's coincidentally works at Oscorp, which Harry coincidentally now runs, and she coincidentally meets Electro, who coincidentally like this and that. It's just coincidences. And it's all based on coincidences, and and that's pretty much my rant on Amazing Spider-Man 2. Honestly, overall, this is the worst one in the Spider-Man series, hands down. For me, anyway, it's the worst one. I get that this movie this movie does get some love from people, from fans, and I'm happy that it does. If you love this movie, then fantastic. I envy you. I wish I could love this movie as much as you do, but I just can't, because that's the way art works. Unfortunately, it's all subjective. It's all opinion based at the end of the day, and you should don't feel ashamed for not liking a movie or liking a film. It's just, I know the internet loves that. Like, they love to try and make people feel small for an opinion, something as low as an opinion of a movie. But if you don't like something, you don't like something, and I don't like this movie very much. And honestly, yeah, I can see why the Amazing Spider-Man universe just didn't catch on. This movie didn't make a lot of money at the box office. Andrew ended up getting fired because for some contrived reasons. I think there was some weird, I think he was going to go to an event and he didn't go to it, and he got fired for not going to the event. And yeah, so he just didn't get. So yes, that happened, and Amazing Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 4, the Sinister Six, and the Venom spin-off that they were going to do, but they didn't end up not doing it. They ended up getting cancelled. So we didn't really get a proper conclusion to Andrew's story or Toby's story until No Way Home. And then, things went round. Sony got into a bit of a panic. They didn't know what to do. They got hacked. Things got leaked. And then Sony decided, let's bite the bullet and make a deal with Marvel. And that's what they did. They made a deal with Marvel, and they brought Spider-Man right into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He made his first appearance in Civil War, but we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking specifically about Spider-Man movies. So let's move on to Spider-Man Homecoming, the first entry in the MCU. A long time coming. Tom Holland. First, let me get that out right now. Tom Holland is a fantastic Peter Parker. He's a fantastic Spider-Man. He takes and I feel like I should point this right now, but I feel like comic book characters and comic book characters can mean, from what I've learned over the years, from watching video essays and seeing people in comment sections and talking about the stuff, comic book characters mean different things to different people. Obviously, you get there's the basic characteristics of a character that you do need to follow. But that's why I feel like when you do film adaptations or animated adaptations of these kind of characters, there's never going to be the definitive version. It's never going to exist because comic characters mean different things to different people. That actor and that creative team are going to focus on they're gonna take those different attributes, those different characteristics, and use that to shape the mold of the character. And that's what the actor is going to do. The actor is going to take look at the character and go, well, I'm going to focus more on this rather than this. So what you saw and what you didn't get from Tobey Maguire, you could have gotten from Andrew Garfield. What you didn't get from Andrew Garfield, you could have gotten from Tom. Maybe Tom decided to focus on something that Tobey and Andrew. Whoop! I keep hitting my microphone. I'm sorry about that. Like maybe Tom wanted to focus on something that Andrew and Tobey didn't do, or maybe Tobey did something that didn't do something that Andrew and Tom decided to do when they played the character. Do you know what I mean? So it's like they mean different. It can mean different things to different people. And that's why I don't think it's going to be. I don't think there'll never be a definitive live action Spider-Man. Like how there's never going to really be a definitive live action Batman. It just depends on how you see the character and how you identify with the character, and how you specifically what you specifically read like on it, like exactly. So that's pretty much it. For me personally, I like all three Spider-Man, and I think the reason why I like all three of them is because all three actors picked something different to focus on when creating their version of the character, while sticking with the other typical traits. Like Peter Parker is a good guy. He likes to do good things, good people, help people. Great power, great responsibility. Toby focused more on the more dweeby, nerdy kind of thing. Andrew focused more on being the loner outcast kind of vibe, as well as the romantic kind of vibes of Peter Parker, and the more arrogant side as well. And Tom here focuses more on Peter Parker's more the naivety of Peter Parker, because obviously he's portraying a much more younger Peter Parker. Like, this is the youngest Peter Parker we've ever really gotten on in the realm of films anyway. I think he's 15, 16 in this movie. And he's a little bit more naive. He doesn't really have a good grasp of what the world's going on. But that's great, because it adds a coming of age kind of thing. That's what I love about this movie. It's like a John Hughes movie, which is kind of what they were aiming for. They were aiming for a more coming of age kind of thing. And so Tom starts off, like this kind of naive kind of kid who wants to believe in good, wants to believe that everyone can change and everything. So he has to kind of learn. And he does believe in that, and he still believes in that, but he has to learn that sometimes you gotta work, you gotta do the work, and you gotta sometimes push yourself even more to try and help people. That's what I like about Tom's version. I think he's great in this movie. Like, this first standalone, he's instantly likable. You like him straight away. And I think, that probably comes the fact that, you see him Tom Holland in interviews and stuff, and he's very likable in real life, or at least from what I've gathered from seeing him in interviews and stuff. But he nails that more naive kind of aspect about the Peter Parker character, and while also focusing on the things that Andrew and Tobey did and kind of combining them together. So focusing more on the nerdy kind of side, but he's not like, he doesn't have glasses, he doesn't push his glasses up like Peter Parker in the 60s. He focuses more on trying to be a high schooler in the mid 2010s. So Andrew was more early 2010s. Andrew was more of a high schooler graduating at the start of the 2010s, but Tom Holland's more what high school would have been like during the mid 2010s, the 2017, the mid to the end of the 2010s. So like, he's able to. This is definitely more of a more definitely modern day kind of Peter Parker, which I quite like. Michael Keaton as the Vulture, fantastic villain, one of the best MCU villains, which is not saying a lot because the MCU has some shit villains, but he is not one of them. He is scary as fuck, and he is really good. Especially that scene where he's putting the dots together and he's figuring out Peter Parker's Spider-Man. There's so much tension in that scene. And he's very Walter White-esque as well, which I really like. Because I really love Breaking Bad. It's one of my favorite. It's a great TV show. I mean, we all know that. Bryan Cranston, Walter White's like a great character, and Michael Keaton definitely gives off Walter White vibes, which is pretty good. And I do like his plan. How he's planning to, he steals alien tech and he resells it for money. And he makes these dodgy contracts and stuff like that. But you get why he's doing what he's doing. He feels ripped off. He feels cheated by the system. He wants to destroy the system, basically. Like, he wants to own the system, and not expose it, but take advantage of it. which I quite like about that. And I do like the fact he's more of a family man, though he does care about his family at the end of the day. Like he wants to keep them secret. Like, he wants to keep this life secret from them. He doesn't want them to ever find out because he doesn't want to hurt them. So when Liz finds out about it at the end, they have to go to the trial. You feel the emotional impact that his actions have had on his family. Um, yeah, I like that. Speaking of Liz Allen, I thought she was a really great love interest, fresh and new and exciting. It's always good to have these new kind of characters come in to add a bit more, add a new perspective. And I really liked the twist that she was Walter's daughter. She was Adrian Toomes' daughter, was also really good. I didn't see that coming. Like as soon as he answered the door, and I was like, oh shit, we're getting this, we're doing this now. And yeah, and it was very shocking, but also very funny. But I really liked Liz Allen. I thought she was a great love interest of Peter, and you got why Peter liked her, and he wanted to ask her out. And I liked their little love story. It was really cute. It was really sweet that he wants to ask her out. He wants to be with her. And he finally gets what he wants, but he's got to do the right thing, and the right thing means taking her dad down. And yeah, that kind of that definitely that kind of sets the groundwork for how Peter Parker's problems are gonna evolve over time in this new trilogy of movies. Ned Leeds was very good, very likable, and very funny. I liked how I also did like Zendaya as MJ. I do like Zendaya as MJ. When I first saw her in this film, though, I was a bit like, oh, okay. But it was her inclusion in later films that made me like her even more. And I feel like I feel like maybe they did it on purpose, like deliberately, like not show her much in this film, only to then bring her back into further movies, further on down the line. And you get to know her a bit more, and you get to like know what she's like, and she's a very likable character, as well. And yeah, she's not like the comic book Mary Jane, but look, this is the third reboot we've had of Spider-Man in live action. We've got to do something. You got to change up some stuff. Like you can't, like otherwise people aren't gonna come. People aren't gonna go. Like people were getting pretty bored of the repeating things from the Raimi trilogy, in the Mark Webb series. So you got to do something new. You got to do something completely different. And that's what I like about it. It does feel fresh and new. This new series. Flash was Flash. What the hell's Flash? Flash was okay. I understood where they're going with for the kind of the rich kid kind of thing, but I don't know. I don't know. It seemed a bit basic, maybe. I was a bit. Again, Flash does get better as the films go on. I think just in this film, when we get introduced to him, it's a little bit. It's just the rich kid thing again. I'm not really. I don't really feel it in this first film, but I do. I do like him more and more in these films. I feel like that's because they show him a little bit more in each film, and they do give him a lot more funnier moments in the sequels. Tony Stark was a good inclusion. I'm glad that he was Peter's mentor. I know people complain about him being Peter's mentor, but again, I feel like for this first trilogy, anyways, considering that he is, a kid, who wouldn't want Tony Stark to be a mentor? Like, I would have loved to have Tony Stark be my mentor when I was a kid. But it would have been grand. I would have been able to hang out with Iron Man all day. I liked how he filled in the roles of the father figure. I liked how he filled in the roles of the father figure, because normally we have the villains do that. We had Green Goblin in the first film and Doc Ock in the second Tobey film, and then we had in Amazing Spider-Man 1 we actually had like a good couple like three father figures. Captain Stacy, was it Captain Stacy, and Dr. Curtis Connors, and obviously Uncle Ben. But I liked in this one they swapped it to where Tony is more of the father figure for him, and I liked how in this one it was the hero rather than the villain, and it added a new perspective that you didn't really think about before. It was good. He was a decent father figure to Peter, and I liked the scene, especially I liked the scene where he takes Peter's suit away from him, and he just goes, if you know nothing about the suit, then you shouldn't have it. Like he teaches Peter a lot of like valuable and really hard, like tough love, like these tough life lessons, and I like how Tony is a little bit like, look, you need to stay to the ground. Like you can't be doing this big stuff now. You're not ready. Like after Civil War, considering like he nearly, considering how protective Tony really is of Peter in this, which is a very sweet relationship. Especially after when he gets snapped away in Infinity War, and you just see the distraught on Tony's face. Oh god, I need to rewatch Infinity War tonight, I think, because that's just such a powerful film, just such a good film. yeah, but like Tony was a good character. He was a good father figure to Peter. The tough he had these tough love kind of lessons, but they were important. They're important, which is important for any child's development, really. Particularly when you're almost nearing adult, when you're getting like that little bit closer to adulthood. Happy, I thought was hilarious. I love the interactions between him and Peter. I think Happy is a character that gets better and better with each film, particularly Spider-Man films. I like the relationship between Peter. Like, I love how in this film it starts off where Peter just won't leave him the fuck alone, and he's just like bothering him constantly, and Happy's just like, please stop calling me, go away. And I just love it. It's hilarious. But then at the end, he thanks him for saving his ass because Peter stopped the Vulture, and Happy realized if you didn't do that, then I'd be out of a job. So he's grateful for that, and I do love Happy as a character, and I'm glad that Happy stuck around, and it's hopefully continuing to stick around further along in the MCU. I think the thing I liked more about this movie, I think I just shouted into the microphone there for a second there. I'm gonna have to edit this audio quite a bit for this episode. Oh god. What I liked about this movie though was the fact that it felt more smaller. And again, it did kind of the thing that Amazing Spider-Man 1 did, where it kind of felt more like an independent superhero. Well, Amazing Spider-Man felt more like an independent superhero drama, and this one felt more like a smaller kind of John Hughes feel to it. It's like a coming of age kind of superhero movie where this is their story starting out, and they're going to develop and grow as the films go on. Which I really like. It had a very Breakfast Clubby feel to it, which is good because I love Breakfast Club. That's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it gives a new feel to the MCU, like a side to the MCU that you've never seen before. Like, I'm glad that I keep burping. Sorry about that. I like how we keep getting to we keep seeing new sides to the MCU that we've never seen before, like that we never get to see. And with particularly in the early days of the MCU, with this was what phase 3, and we're still getting introduced to the cosmic side, and now we're getting to the more street level kind of thing with Spider-Man, because he is a very street level hero in this, and I like that feel to it. I like how it does feel like it's got kind of street level stuff, and very small scale as well, which is good because and the dedication to keeping it in high school is also good because what I like about it starts off, this trilogy starts off small, but it gets bigger and bigger and bigger with each installment. So by the time you get to No Way Home, you've grown these characters, you've grown and you've seen the stakes literally get higher and higher. And that's something that I really hope they do with the college trilogy that they do. Like they go back to kind of keep it small scale for the Spider-Man 4, and then by the time you get Spider-Man 6, it's astronomical. Like it's even bigger and higher stakes than it was for No Way Home. And the comedy in this film was really good. I mean, there were some bad jokes in there that were a bit, there was the guy in the chair jokes were a bit, they were fine, but there was sometimes just a bit they roll on for a bit too long. Like when Peter's got the voice changer and he webs Donald Glover's Prowler to the car, and to the car, and then because he's got the voice changer on, he's like, "You girl," and he's like, "I'm not a girl." Like that joke just ran a little bit too long for me. It wasn't funny. I think some of the jokes ran on a little bit too long, but they were mostly good though. Most of it was really funny stuff. Like again with Happy telling Peter to fuck off constantly, and when Peter and when Peter and Ned were looking at Liz, and it was like, oh yeah, does Liz look different today? And they're talking about a skirt. And then Zendaya just looks at me and goes, "You guys are losers." Like, that's just funny to me. I do like Zendaya in this early film as well. I think she's out of bed. She's just hilarious in this. Like when she's drawing when she's in detention with Peter and she shows him the drawing of him just looking sad. I just thought that was funny. And when Peter gets to the prom and she just gives him the middle finger again for no reason. I don't know why. I just found that hilarious. But yeah, some of the jokes as well. Like another joke was the whole penis Parker thing that Flash keeps calling him, and I just feel like no, that's just I don't like that joke was just a bit like that joke failed. So some of the jokes in there weren't great, but most of them were good. I found most of the comedy enjoyable for the most part. And speaking of the Prowler, I really like Donald Glover's cameo, and I hope to God this is the start of setting up Miles Morales for the MCU. Because after Across the Spider Verse, we definitely need Miles Morales in the MCU. Like I am got my fingers crossed we're going to see him appear in the MCU soon. But we'll get to that when we get to Across the Spider Verse. Because oh god, we've got so many films left to go, people. So many movies left to go. Oh dear. Oh boy. Let's see what else as well. So going to a little bit of a negative. Marissa Tomei is Aunt May. I liked her in the role of Aunt May. I think Marissa Tomei is a great actress. She's a fine actress, fantastic actress. But as Aunt May, I think she was one of the weakest aspects of the film. I think I said this in my first episode. I feel like Aunt May just didn't do anything. And that's kind of the problem. And she did some things, like when she gives Peter that little speech, oh, I know you sneak out every night and stuff like that. And she helps him get ready for the prom. But even then, like, she doesn't really contribute a lot, and I really didn't like that joke. That again, another joke I didn't like was the constant, joke about Aunt May getting hit on by multiple men. It's just one of those things where it's like that, like why, like I don't know, like I just didn't really like that aspect about it. I did find it a little bit, I don't know, maybe I did find it a little bit sexist, but maybe that's just me though. Maybe I'm just missing the point here. I don't know. Feel free to correct me if you want to. But yeah, I didn't really like that aspect. The action sequences were really good. They were nice, and I like the first Tobey Maguire movie. They were basic, but I feel like because this was the third reboot, and because again, this was more a street level kind of thing, they had to keep it a little bit more smaller scale, the action sequences, and I did like that. I like that they kept it a bit more smaller scale, the holding back the big exaggerated action sequences until the next one, Far From Home. And they worked well, and they were effective, and especially that last sequence with the Vulture, being Peter up, trying to get the alien tech, and then Peter ends up saving him in the end. And for me, I just thought it was grand. I thought it was good. And yeah, and yeah. I don't think as well, like the drastic changes they made to the source material. I didn't mind them because again, this is the third reboot in a row. They needed to change stuff. I know there were some people out there that didn't like the drastic changes that were made to the source material, but again, I just thought like we needed that, like, because this is the third Spider-Man reboot. We needed a change. We needed a drastic change, because we can't just keep repeating the same stuff over and over again. Don't get me wrong. After No Way Home, I do want to see a little bit more classic Spidey stuff getting incorporated, like Harry and Gwen and all those guys, and more classic villains, like MCU versions of more classic villains. But for the most part, I'm down. But when it was this early kind of thing, I was down for the drastic changes, like bring on the change. We gotta revolve stuff. We gotta do something new, and I like new things, so I didn't mind the changes that much. And again, like I said, I'm not like a massive Spider-Man fan. I'm more of a casual guy. I like the films. I never really read the comic books, so I know I'm not gonna get like that into the, not gonna get that like protective over the, like get that like annoyed when they like make a drastic change. Or something like that. But yeah, but overall, like the drastic changes, I was fine with them. The music was very good. Vulture's theme was very effective. The do do do, and just thought it was really good. It was great music. And overall, pretty decent start to Spider-Man in the MCU. It was a good movie. Great coming of age kind of feel to it. Great John Hughes kind of feel to it. But overall, decent stuff. Now let's get on to a Spider-Man movie that I did not expect to love as much as I did, nor did I think anyone expected to love as much as they did. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, I didn't know how to... When this movie got announced back in... When it got announced? I think it got announced 2015. Yeah, it got announced 2015. I think me and other people just didn't know how to feel about it, because it was like, oh, okay, it's an animated Spider-Man film. It's been made by Sony Pictures Animation, the guys that did the Emoji Movie, which came out the same year as Homecoming, and all that stuff. So we didn't really know what to feel like. And even when we got the first trailers and the animation style, it was like, oh, that looks cool. But again, we didn't really. I didn't really know how to feel about it. And then when I heard the word of mouth and saying people like singing its praises and it won the Oscar, I was like, okay, I gotta check this movie out. Like, what is this? What is this film? Like, what's everyone so amped up for? And I watched it on Now TV when it came on Now TV. I missed it in cinemas. I was going to see it in cinemas, but I just didn't get around to it, unfortunately, because I was doing my master's degree at the time. And I'm gonna say this right now: this is not only is this one of the best Spider-Man movies ever made. This was one of the best superhero movies ever made, and one of the best animated movies in recent memory. I mean, God, this movie into the Spider-Verse, but across the Spider-Verse. I mean, spoiler alert, across the Spider-Verse, surpasses this film. But you already knew that. Uh, um, but it's just such a good movie. This movie is such a breath. It's such a breath of fresh air to see the concept of Spider-Man being told and shown through the lenses of somebody else, and that's through Miles Morales. And Miles Morales, he's a very likable character. You get to know him well. You get to know more about his life, his culture, his parenthood, his parents, and his family, and what his life was like before. He misses his old school, his old life. He doesn't like the new school that he goes to, but he understands that he wants to go back to his old school and live his old life. But his parents are constantly trying to get him to commit to the new school that he's been given, and take advantage of this opportunity that he's been given. But he got his struggles as well as this interesting kid who this Latino kid Latina, I think it's Latino, who it's just good seeing a new, fresh kind of take on Spider-Man and a new perspective added to it. Because look, I love Peter Parker as a character. Don't get me wrong, like I love Peter Parker, but it's just refreshing to see someone else behind the mask. It's really refreshing. Like, it's so refreshing. It's so new. It feels new, and I like new things. One thing people should know about me is that I love new stuff. New is always better, in my opinion. Unless it turns out to be shit, and in which case it's not that better. But oh well. And just having Peter be his mentor, it's a good aspect and a good way to eat. It's a good way to incorporate Peter into the plot, but it's also a good way to kind of ease Spider-Man. But yeah, so it was just interesting to see it done. But yeah, Peter B. Parker, that's what I'm about. So yeah, it was Peter B. Parker was a good way to kind of I guess ease people who are maybe not familiar with Miles into the story. But I do feel like because Miles was such a strong character, from the get-go, that I don't think that was really needed. But like you get to know more about Miles' life, and having Peter be his mentor is a cool concept. Such cool in fact that they also used it for the Spider-Man PS4 video game. Well, kind of. But that was more for the sequel. But the 2018 was a good year for Spider-Man. Jesus. It was definitely Miles' year for sure, because that game like kind of kickstarted Miles into kind of just stardom for a second and now he's everyone kicked into like stardom basically. The other Spider people, Gwen, I liked her. Spider-Man Noir, I mean, come on, he's voiced by Nicolas Cage. Who wouldn't like him? Peter Porker, I thought was hilarious. Penny, I thought was really cool. I really liked how they were all animated differently, and I liked how because they were from different universes, and obviously people from different universes, you're gonna look different. I liked how they were animated differently. Like nobody was animated the same. Like Noir was in black and white. Penny Parker felt more like a character from an anime rather than from a more like a Western cartoon. Peter Porker looked more like a Looney Tune. Was designed more like a Looney Tunes character, quite literally, because he even says "That's all, folks" at the very end, which was a nice joke. And seeing their different designs and their different styles was so cool. And they blended really well together. You wouldn't think that for different styles of animation, you didn't think they would blend well together, but the animators was such a good job at making sure that they're all on the same screen, and they're not they don't look the same, but we're going to make sure they look they blend in well, and that was really great. And speaking of the animation, I mean, the animation in this movie is fantastic. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous to look at. And and to think this style of animation doesn't actually cost that much to make, like unlike like Pixar movies or like typical CG movies, they cost quite a fair bit to make. But this one is just like this style. There's a reason why the new Ninja Turtles movie has taken this style. That's why the new Puss in Boots movie borrowed this style, is because it's well, one's affordable to make, to do way more affordable than your standard 3D movie, but also it looks fantastic. It looks beautiful, and you can do so much with that animation. Like that new Ninja Turtles movie looks so gorgeous. I cannot wait to see that. Um, the animation in this one is just perfect. I mean, the sequel's animation is much better. I'll get onto that just later on down the line. But for the most part, yeah, it was just really good. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and seeing all different styles blend well together is just fantastic. Which I don't think, have we ever seen that in an anime movie before? I mean, if we have, I don't remember it. So, and yeah, so and the fact that everyone's using it now, even Disney started using it for Wish. That the movie Wish, they've definitely got a little tint of that Spider-Verse kind of animation style for that movie, which I'm looking forward to, and I'll probably go see. Because I like anime movies, and see if it's good. And yeah, but I feel like with this one in particular, the emotional moments they're big and they're huge, but they're big and huge like they would be in a Spider-Man film usually. But in this one, they are just so. It's shocking how like deep these moments are. Like just how deep this movie is. Like this is like none of the other Spider-Man films have really gone as deep as this one. And even the sequel goes even deeper, and it's just fantastic. Like Peter's death, the Peter from Miles' universe, his death is fantastic. That song, I'm not scared of the dark. Like that, the soundtrack to this film is chef's kiss. Great soundtrack, fantastic soundtrack. Again, the second one outdoes it, but I still listen. Like I'll get onto the soundtrack later on, because I need to keep on track here. Miles proving who he is, in terms of because obviously in the movie he's just got his Spider-Man powers, he's trying to learn the ropes, but the other Spider people, they don't really know if he's ready or not, and he wants to prove that who he is, because anyone can be Spider-Man, anyone can have the mask, which is what Stan Lee said back in the day. But back when he first created Spider, that's what Stan Lee said when he got interviewed as to why people geared towards Spider-Man. I think his answer was because anyone can wear the mask, and that is true. Anyone can wear the mask. But Miles having to prove himself. Miles making his new suit and of his own, and coming into it and doing his own thing, and saying I'm going to be Spider-Man, but I'm going to do it my own way. And I like that. It's like him taking this and creating this thing for himself, and I really like that. I really like that approach. That was such a good emotional moment. And Uncle Aaron's death, man. Oh my, you get to know him. Like this Uncle Aaron's death, but even the scene where he finds out that Uncle Aaron is the Prowler, like even that scene is just it's just heartbreaking. You see the look on his, and when he dies, and then all Uncle Aaron says to him is just keep going, and it's just like oh my god, it melts your heart. It really does melt your heart when you see it. Aunt May sitting Peter P. Parker, because obviously she lost hers, Peter Parker. That was just a sweet moment. And all the Spider people talking about who they've lost, like Gwen lost her friend, and I think Penny lost her dad, and all these other Spider people. It's so heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. Even Kingpin has some good moments in here. It's really cool seeing him as a villain as well. Really refreshing. Because normally I mean, obviously Kingpin was always a Spider-Man villain. Like, there's no doubt about that. But for the movie-going public, or people who only watch the movies or the TV shows, they're usually associated more with Daredevil. Because he was in the Daredevil movie, the Ben Affleck one. Then he was in the TV show with Charlie Cox. And now he's going to be in another TV show with Charlie Cox, Daredevil, Born Again, which I am looking forward to. Shame the production had to shut down because of the writer's strike, but I'd say that writer's strike's got to get sorted out soon, because so many. I want to see Daredevil back on screen. I also want the writers to be paid well. Pay your writers well, Hollywood. Come on, treat your writers right. Come on, give them the royalties that they need, or give them what they need. Give them what they want. Come on, just do it. But even Kingpin got some good emotional moments. Like you understand why he was trying to do, why he was doing what he did. Like it wasn't out of greed. It wasn't out of greed. It wasn't out of revenge. It was because he wanted to get his family back. Because Spider-Man, he gets caught by Vanessa beating up Spider-Man, and then they drive off, but they end up crashing their car and they die. Her and his son, and he wants them back. He wants to go to another universe where he can find them and bring them into this universe. But the problem is, if he does that, then the entire universe collapses. Which is what happens. So you get where he's coming from. He's still a bad guy. He's still evil. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he's still an asshole. But you understand where he's coming from. He gets some good emotional moments in there. Peter B. Parker was also an interesting take on the Spider-Man character. It was kind of new to see a cinematic version of Spider-Man in his adult years, because normally when Spider-Man, it's usually either in his teens or in his early 20s. But I liked how this one was like, oh no, we're going to show him in his mid 30s. Like, I think he's in his mid 30s at least. I think, yeah, he's in his mid 30s rather than a teenager or early 20-year-old. And he's going through the motions, and he's losing control of his life. He's putting some weight. He's let himself go a bit, and he's lost his marriage because Mary Jane wanted kids, and he wasn't ready for kids. And obviously, across the Spider-Verse, that he was definitely ready for kids then. And yeah, so that was a good, nice moment for him. But I think the thing I like the most about this movie is the themes of inclusion and acceptance and working together. I feel like those themes were done very well, and they felt very strong in this movie. Like, when Miles and Peter find out about the other spider people, and then, rather than them all fighting and arguing like they usually would, they actually decide, we're going to band together and we're going to work together. And that was a cool kind of moment, and that was filled to take down Kingpin. But obviously, Miles, he feels excluded because, he's struggling to get his powers to work. He feels left out, and there's even one part where Peter goes, you can't come with us. You can't come with us. I'm really sorry. You can't. You need to stay here. And he webs him up and stuff like that. But then you have that. So you have that kind of theme of Miles just feeling a bit excluded from the pack. Which I think works really well. I liked how the spider powers were kind of like a metaphor for puberty, which the Raimi films kind of sort of did, but this movie, I mean, he literally says when he's sticking to walls and stuff, oh no, it's just puberty, I'm going for puberty. So I liked that. And yeah, I just thought overall was what else did I like? But yeah, I like the themes of acceptance, inclusion, and working together. So Miles just feels excluded from the pack, but then he's able to prove himself. He pulls himself back up, and he's like, no, I am Spider-Man, and I'm going to be part of this team. And he goes back, he creates his own suit for himself, and he designs his own web shooters for himself, and he does this all so he can prove that he is Spider-Man, and which is a great motive, because it does show that the theme of it being anyone can be Spider-Man. And it celebrates the idea of Spider-Man and what Spider-Man stands for, and how it isn't just Peter, it's other people. Anyone can be Spider-Man, which Stan Lee said in that interview years ago. Anyone can wear the mask, and this film perfectly shows that anyone can wear the mask. And I just love this movie so much. It's just I could gush about this movie all fucking day if I wanted to, especially its sequel, which we will get to soon. Don't worry, I keep teasing that, but we will get to that film soon. Stanley cameo was so sweet and so good, especially he gets the costume and he goes, oh yeah, don't worry, it'll fit eventually, and which obviously it's a nice little metaphor for his anyone can wear the mask kind of speech, but also a little joke as well, which is quite funny. The comedy in this film was fantastic as well. The jokes were just, they landed all. There was not a single joke in this where I just did you have to make that? No, the jokes in this were perfection. I really liked the jokes in this. It was just a funny film, really. And yeah, and especially my favorite part is probably when Uncle Aaron just goes, hey. That I just love that. I love the hey. That's just that's been memed to death, but it's been memed to death for a good reason. Last one, soundtrack, perfection. What's Up Danger, Sunflower, I'm Not Scared of the Dark. I mean, do I even have to go any further? I mean, the music itself is just so good. It fits the tone of the film perfectly. It helps builds the world of the movie more and helps it feel more lived in. And overall, it's just a sick soundtrack. If you haven't listened to the soundtrack for this movie, go listen to it, and then go listen to the one for the sequel, because that's even better. So Across the Spider-Verse, fantastic movie. I loved it. I loved it to pieces. So let's go on to Spider-Man: Far From Home, the second Tom Holland film. So before making this podcast episode, because I'm writing up my notes, I actually had no idea how divided opinion was on this film. Because I was working at View Cinema when this film came out, and I just thought people liked it. Because I like this movie. I enjoy this one. I had no idea how divisive this movie was to people at first when it came out. Now, I thought it was just pretty well received when it came out. I think critics well received it, and it made a ton of money at the box office. I think it was the first Spider-Man film to reach the $1 billion club, if I remember, if I'm getting my facts right on that. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think I am. But overall, I still really enjoy this one. I loved how the first one had this John Hughes kind of vibe to it, which this film still does, but it also got a little bit of that Lampoon's Vacation, National Lampoon's Vacation aspect to it, which is bizarre because the writers for these Spider-Man movies actually wrote the screenplay for the National Lampoon's Vacation reboot, the one that came out in 2015, with Ed Helms, and apparently that movie's bad. I've not seen it, but I've heard it's bad. But yeah, so Tom Holland, he once again shines in this role. Tom Holland is a perfect Spider-Man. He's there's no other way to say it. Tom Holland is just a great Spider-Man, and they work on him so well. And because this is set after Endgame, after Tony Stark, he gets given a lot more to do. He gets given a lot more emotional moments for him to have in this film, which I really like. Especially showing his struggles with wanting to get with MJ, get with Zendaya. Get with MJ, but obviously there's that other classmate. What's his name? I got him down here somewhere. Let's see, MJ. Let's see here. Brad, that's it, Brad. Brad's constantly getting in his way, and he just wants to enjoy his vacation because after the death of Tony Stark, a lot of people have put the weight of the leadership of the Avengers and stuff onto him. And I like that because it shows how, because in the beginning, Peter, he wanted to be part of the Avengers. That was his main goal in Homecoming. He was like, I want to be part of the Avengers. I want to, I'm never going to come back to school. I'm going to be part of the Avengers. And then he gets offered it, and then he turns it down because he decides, actually, I think I'm better off staying as a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But unfortunately, because Tony Stark is now dead, people are now starting to turn to him. People starting to turn to him to be the leader of the Avengers and to kind of fill in the place of the next Iron Man. And because Peter is I think 17, around 16 in this, that's a lot of pressure for a 16-year-old. And you really do feel that, this part where you get that in the opening stick when he's at the homeless shelter and people are the press are just in his face, constantly asking questions, and he's starting to get stressed, and he's starting to get stressed out, and he needs to leave, take a minute and leave. And you really feel the impact that Tony Stark has had on him. And he doesn't want to be. He wants us to be a superhero and do the right thing, but he doesn't want to be the next Iron Man. And he wanted to be part of the Avengers, but that was back when Tony was there. Tony would have been by his side, he would have helped him through it. But because Tony's gone, he hasn't got anyone to help him. He doesn't want any of it. He doesn't want to be part of the Avengers. He doesn't want to be part of the bigger ensemble. He wants to stay relatively street level. Which is what I like. I like that kind of development for his character. I know people had a problem with that, and I get that, because everyone was like, oh, well, one moment he wants it, one minute now he doesn't. But I think it's more, he wanted it at first, but then now that he's kind of sort of gotten what he wants, he's realized that actually this is not what I want. Which kind of happens, you think that, you want something, you get that, and then you realize actually this is not good. But yeah, Tom Holland does a good job, and you see the effect of everything that having with him and the amount of pressure that is on him to be the next Iron Man, particularly from Nick Fury, who's a bit of a dick in this. Nick Fury's a little bit unlikable in this. I don't really like Nick Fury in this movie. I think he's a bit unlikable, and he treats Peter quite badly. I know that he's a Skrull. I know people are gonna say, well, he's a Skrull. I guess he's a Skrull, but even so, even then, we don't know that until the end of the movie, and it's just one of those things where it's I don't know, it's just a little bit unlikable in this movie. The way he treats Peter and stuff like that, and takes over his vacation and everything. It's just a bit, leave the kid alone. Let the kid have a vacation, for fuck's sake. Like, you're playing of superheroes. Don't fucking go for the fucking kid. Leave Peter alone. The supporting cast are fantastic. They're on their A game here. Zendaya improves massively from the first one. Ned is still great fun. His relationship with Brady Brant in this is a little bit flat. I get that it's treated like a joke, but even though it's not that effective, and it's just that can get a bit annoying at points. I think Flash is much more better in this movie, but better in Homecoming. He's much more funnier. He's more entertaining. I love that scene in the coach where Peter just slaps him and he knocks him out. I don't know. That's quite funny for me. And Brad, I think it's a fun nemesis for Peter. It's very interesting how one of his nemesis in this is literally a high school student, because obviously Brad wants to get with MJ. He's trying to basically cock block Peter at every moment that he gets. But I liked him. He was a fun nemesis for Peter, and I like the ending of Brad pointing out the obvious, and he's like, where's Peter? He disappears and no one notices. Does anyone else see this? And then, and also, when he takes the picture of Peter in with the field agent when he's getting changed to the Spider Monkey suit. No, not Spider Monkey, Night Monkey. That was it, Night Monkey. The suits in this movie are fine. I don't really get why we needed the stealth suit, to be honest. I mean, it was okay. But I do like the red and black one. I do like it. That suit is really good. It's a shame it's gone now, but well, we had it for 2 movies. It was a good run. But the supporting cast were good for the most part. MJ and Peter's romance, I felt like was good. I liked it. I preferred it better than the romance that MJ and Peter had in the Raimi trilogy. But then again, I mean, that's not really a tough act to follow. I mean, any romance is better than. I mean, Peter's romance with Liz Allen was better than all 3 movies of Toby and of MJ and Peter in the Raimi films. It's not a tough act to follow. But they were a lot more better. They were a lot more cuter in here. The only thing, and you really start to see their bond, and start to see them get to know each other, but not get to know each other, but get closer and closer to each other. And Peter, and it's very sweet, and it's very cute, and it's very sweet. And he just wants to be with her. He wants to tell her he loves her, which he says to Mysterio. It's a very interesting kind of thing. The only thing I don't like is how so obviously she was blipped away like he was. Same with Ned. They were all blipped away, and then after the blip, we get a quick recap. But then in the next scene, he's like, "Okay, so this is my plan. I'm gonna seduce MJ," and it's like, wait. So you like it? You know what I mean? Him liking MJ as sort of just appeared out of nowhere, and it's like, yeah, I really like MJ now, and it's like, okay. I mean, I get that it's set 8 months. It's 8 months after Endgame. I think it's 8 months after Endgame. Yeah, I want to say it's 8 months after Endgame. This movie's set. So yeah, maybe during that time he got to know her more and started to like her, but we don't see that. It's literally the next scene, out of nowhere, he's like, "Oh yeah, I really like MJ now," and it's like, "Oh, okay, when did this happen? When? How? Why? Plots, details, facts. Come on." Can't believe I just quit Transformers 2: Revenge of the Fallen. Ugh, I feel really dirty now doing that. Because that movie is trash. It was a trash movie. In my opinion anyway. I know there's people out there that like the Michael Bay Transformers movies, and if you do, that's fine. Fine by me. So yeah, that's the only thing about their relationship I didn't like. But the rest of it, seeing it relate and grow and getting more closer to each other, I felt that was really cute. And it set up a nice relationship for them in the next one, No Way Home. Mysterio was a good villain. Not as great as Vulture, but still a decent villain. And obviously the twist with him, because he starts as a hero and then you find out he's a bad guy. You could see that coming from a mile away. If you know who Mysterio is, the character Mysterio, you could see that coming from a mile away. It wasn't a surprise. It wasn't really much of a twist. I did like him when he went full villain, at the end, because obviously him and Peter do get quite close, and they make a good bond with each other. And then he is like, "Oh, why are you making me doing this, Peter? Why are you making me trying to kill you? Sorry." And it's just seeing that, and he's shouting at him, and he's screaming at him, he's trying to kill him. And when he screams in the column, he's like, "No, fire all the drones." And it's like, oh god, oh wow, this really did change. But I like how it's, and the commentary on, fake news and how don't always believe what you see. It's a cool kind of commentary, and I think Mysterio is definitely the best villain to do that because obviously with him, he's always about illusions, um, and he's doing this thing with drones and the elementals are all fake. He's all about fakery and tricking people, and I feel like tying that in with the themes of fake news and stuff like that was really cool. And good commentary on that aspect of the world as well, particularly around 2019 because fake news is everywhere. It still is to this very day, unfortunately. We're never going to escape it, though, are we? What else as well? And it looks really cool as well. The effects and everything. And I also liked how he was a parody of what the what we expect from the superhero is. Like, he's very heroic. He's got a tragic backstory. Tragic backstory, like the fake persona that he puts on. Like, he's like in a way mocking typical superheroes. Like, he's studied he's breaking down how a typical superhero is made. Like, tragic backstory, cool costume, cool powers, stuff like that. And yeah, he's definitely alive as well. Like, he's not dead. He ain't dead. He's alive somewhere. He was going to be in No Way Home, actually. I think there was like concept art of him in No Way Home, but that didn't happen. They must have taken him out probably because too many villains, or at least not enough villains to juggle around. J.K. Simmons was a nice cameo at the end. I really enjoyed seeing him again. It was just nice to see him again, really, after all this time. And it just proves that, nobody can play J. Jonah Jameson except for J.K. Simmons. Like, he is just perfection in this role. I mean, again, that being said, though, the whole Alex Jones angle they took with his character, like the making Daily Bugle, InfoWars, I thought it was, I don't know, I didn't know how to feel about that because, on one hand, it was very funny, like seeing him parody Alex Jones. But on the other hand, I don't know, I kind of just preferred the whole newspaper kind of. I kind of preferred it when the Daily Bugle was just a newspaper that he wrote, like, But again, I get why they did it. They had to do something different with the character. Had to make it. You have to do something different with the character because they've done the newspaper thing and the Alex Jones thing. It's still funny, like, it's still a parody at the end of the day because fuck Alex Jones. I've got no problem saying that. Nick Fury again was a little bit of a dick. I didn't like the way he was treating Peter. I get he was a Skrull at the end, but even so, a bit of a character here, especially when he's suddenly like he didn't fall for like Quentin stuff until the very end of the film. And again, they made a little bit of joke about that at the very end in the end credit scene. But even so, it was just a bit. It was just I don't know. I didn't think Nick Fury was very effective in this movie, and just boy wasn't. He was a bit out of character, really. Maybe the whole Skrull thing. Maybe because he was being technically a Skrull, maybe that's why he was acting like that. But I don't know. Aunt May again didn't really do anything at all. I mean, like, she just didn't do anything in this movie. Like, and I get she does stuff in the next film, No Way Home, which is good. She contributes to the story there, but again, like, I just didn't really like that. Mr. May is fine. She just goes with what she's given, but she's not really given a lot to. It's just, I think it's more the fact that her Aunt May just didn't get given a lot to do in these first two films, and just doesn't really contribute a lot. And I'm happy that in the third and final appearance she actually does get stuff to do, which is nice. Happy was nice though. It was good to see him, and I'm glad that him and Pete's relationship are starting to get more better, and their friendship starting to get more closer. The action was a lot more better than Homecoming. Like I said, they've with each film they seem to up the action, so that Homecoming was a bit more small scale, a bit more street level. This one's a lot more like how this one's more from the action you'd remember in the Raimi movies, where it's a bit more bigger, a bit more eccentric, a bit more massive. And I feel the fact that they've taken Spider-Man out of New York and put them in like different areas of Europe, different parts of the world. I feel like that also leads them to creating more like clever kind of action sequences and new kind of choreography, so to speak. So like when he's like in the night monkey suit and he Like, he's racing away from that fire elemental, and he runs up the wall, and he jumps off, and he swings, and then throws the stone brick at the stone rubble at the monster. I like that stuff. Like that's really cool. Or the stuff in London on the London Bridge with drones. That was really quite epic and quite fantastic and quite cool. Quite big and huge, and it was all of suspense as well. Like seeing his suit just get like this new suit he's just made get like burnt, torn, destroyed. Yeah, and I liked how we saw him make the suit this time. I like how they tried to give a good example as to why the suit looks more Hollywood and not like a kid made it, because he's in the airship and he uses Tony's tools to create the suit for himself. I like that. The action was better. Comedy was better as well. Comedy was good. Some of the jokes felt a bit off, like before. Like the coach scenes didn't really feel good. Like goats, really. Okay. And the scene as well of him, the shield lady, was a bit weird. It was a bit odd, but and I liked how like Brad took the photo and then Pete had to wipe it off his phone. That was funny, but the actual scene where he walks in on him, it's just a bit. I don't know. It's just a bit like I was watching it the other night, and I was just like, oh, okay, all right. Let's go into the end credit scene, not the one with Nick Fury on the ship, but that is a very cool end credit scene and a weird way to end Phase 3, I guess, but a good way to try and set up Phase 4. The end credit scene where he's swinging through with MJ, they're on their date, and then his identity gets revealed. I remember when this scene was playing, and I was just so like my heart was pounding. I was like, what the hell? What's going on here? And then when they say dailybugle.net and J.K. Simmons pops up, it's like, oh, what's happening? And then they reveal it, like they say his identity. They say, oh, Spider-Man's identity is Peter Parker, and it's like, oh fucking hell, holy shit! Like, and like you're literally on the edge of your seat as well with that end credit scene. It really ended on like that was such a cliff. That was such a big. There wasn't as big of a cliffhanger as when Infinity War ended to set up Endgame, but it was still a pretty big cliffhanger, and it was one of the things where it's like, I feel like that ending as well was probably one of the main reasons why everyone got so annoyed when Spider-Man very, very briefly left the MCU for like, a month, because obviously they didn't renew the deal, and yeah, basically, and there's but I can see why like the ending, people were like, oh, what happened next? Come on, get sure what's happened next. And yeah, so that's Far From Home. Again, it's apparently it's very diversive, but I still enjoy it for what it is. I think it's a fun vacation movie featuring superheroes, and that's what I like about it. Next one is Spider-Man No Way Home, but again, I've already talked about this in my first episode back when I was recapping the whole of Phase 4 of the MCU, so I'm just going to cliff notes it. I love No Way Home. I think it's a very good movie. I love how it celebrates Spider-Man's cinematic achievements from the past and the present. Andrew and Tobey are great in it. The multiple elements are good. Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange. That I like that aspect about it. I liked how Electro got a second chance, and that was actually a good villain this time. Shame Lizard didn't get redeemed. Green Goblin, fantastic. Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, fantastic. The ending is heartfelt and powerful. The action is much more bigger than the biggest that this trilogy has ever gotten. Daredevil was a great return, and yeah. So overall, like, go see it. It's just go watch No Way Home. It's on DVD. You can find it on DVD somewhere. You can find it on Amazon for like, I don't know, to like £10 or something. It's worth every penny. Just go see No Way Home. Great movie, fantastic film, and that's the end of it. If you want to hear my full thoughts, go back to the very first episode and you'll hear my full thoughts. And last but not least, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, I'm just going to give a quick warning here. This is going to be spoiler-filled. There's spoilers in this. So if you've not seen Across the Spider-Verse yet, go see it, get the fuck out, go see the movie, and then come back in and then listen to my thoughts. But yeah, so this is your spoiler warning. So, you've been warned. But basically, I'm just going to say this on the top right now. This is the best animated film of 2023, and this is the best Spider-Man film. This is the second best Spider-Man film for me. It's right up there with the first Spider-Verse and Spider-Man 2, the Raimi Spider-Man 2. This movie, oh my god, I can't even put into words how good this movie was. Like, this film, it's just so good. It is I'm going to sound so cliche, but this is the Empire Strikes Back of the animated Spider-Man universe. Like, it is. It just is. This generation's Empire Strikes Back. And let me just. It's such a good movie, and I was looking forward to this movie so much. I was so pissed off when they delayed it to another year. I was so annoyed because I really wanted to see what happened next. And when I heard it was going to be a two-parter, I was like, "Whoa, what, an anime film split into two?" Like, now that is I've not hit. I've not like that's never. I don't know. Has that ever been done before? I don't think it has. And if it has, I mean, probably in like there's probably been like an anime movie or something that's been split into two, no doubt about it. And obviously TV movies that are animated, they've been split into multiple parts. But a theatrical release that's been split into two films, I don't think that's in the West. I don't think that's ever. I don't think that's ever been done. I could be wrong on that, but you know. So let's start with the animation. So when Anna Taylor-Joy was doing press for the Super Mario Bros. Movie this year, and she was talking about the animation, and she was like, "Oh, the folks at Illumination and Nintendo did a great job. Every film in this movie looks like a painting." And don't get me wrong, the Super Mario Bros. Movie looks fantastic, great animation there, but I have to disagree with Miss Joy on that one because all the animation in this film looks like a fucking painting. It is gorgeous to look at. Like, just from the opening shots of seeing Gwen's world and the colors and everything, it's just, it's art. Every single frame of this movie is art. You could screenshot it, frame it, put it in an art gallery, and nobody would think it, unless if they've seen the movie. I swear, I guarantee you, they would probably think that it was painted by a painter, by some famous painter. Like, they wouldn't even guess it was a still from the film. But that's how gorgeous the animation in this film is. Every frame is a painting. Every single frame, every single scene, every single speck is just a painting. This is a movie that you need to see on the big that you first need to see on the big screen, and then again in 4K. I will very happily buy a 4K TV and a 4K Blu-ray player just so I can, because I want to see what this film looks like, because this film is that gorgeous. I just want to see how good it looks like in that aspect, in that format. I mean, and it just looks gorgeous. And Miles Morales, he's just getting better and better. He gets better and better. I think in this movie he's most relatable, and you really get the sense of how being Spider-Man affects his personal life. We got on that with Peter Parker, but again, it's so good and so nice to see that through a fresh pair of eyes, like somebody new, seeing that through a new pair of eyes, and see how it affects his day-to-day life, how it's affecting his grades at school, how it's affecting his relationship with his mom and dad. I really like like the speech, I'll get to that later on actually. I'll talk about it now actually. Yeah, his relationships as well with his mom and dad, like it's perfect. It's perfect. His relationships with Gwen is perfect. His relationship with Peter Parker is perfect. Even his relationship with Miguel is fine. It's perfect. And well, I would say a villain and well, they don't like each other, but yeah. But his relationship with mom and dad is perfect. And it's so emotional, it's so deep, like it was in the first film. The speech his mother gives him, like about how he was this little boy that she had to take after, and she asked him, just to take care of that little boy for her. That speech, man, that speech is up. It's up there with that speech is up there. I mean, I said this. I don't know if that speech is up there with "There's a Hero in All of Us" from Spider-Man 2. There's a Hero in All of Us speech from Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi one. The speech that Miles' mum gives him, about the little boy and everything, that's up there. That is up there with that one. It's such a good speech and such a good moment. It's such a sweet, wholesome moment between the two of them. And again, it's again because Miles is a brand new character, of Latino, because he's Latino and everything else. It gives a new perspective on it, and it shows like a new side, and it's like that we've never seen before. Like new, like we feel like I'm trying like new. It feels new. Like I feel like I've not seen, even though we have had deep emotional moments in a Spider-Man film before, I've not seen emotional deep moments like this in a Spider-Man film before. It's not afraid to go, because this movie is very, like the last one was very adult as well. About as adult as a family animated movie could go, and this film as well. It doesn't hold you back. It doesn't hold your hand. And it trusts you, the viewer, and respects you as the viewer and your intelligence and everything else as well. Which I like when anime movies do that. I like when anime movies, are able to convey, they're even though they know that they're made for families, they're still willing to go the extra mile to to teach the viewers and the kids and even the parents about these these life lessons that that don't normally get brought up in animation, because people seem to think that animation is a medium, but everyone seems to think that it's all cartoons and SpongeBob and silly faces and stuff like that. But no, the animation is animation. This can be animation is this. It's using the medium to tell a compelling and interesting story with great characters, and that's what this movie is. It's so good. The supporting cast again, terrific. Miguel is a great antagonist for Miles, and how I do like how his his relationship with Miles is kind of more of an allegory for for racism, particularly the racism Miles got when the character was first created back in 2011. But you understood his motivation though. But you understood Miguel's motivation though. He found a universe where he had a parent family. He died. The Miguel in that universe died. He came in and he replaced him. But it created a paradox, and the universe died basically, and he screwed it up. Beyond Stu's motivation, Dress Drew was a very cool character. I really liked it. Very witty and just very awesome. It's just cool to see a Spider-Man, Spider person on a fucking motorbike. It was just so cool to see it, and especially in animation form. I feel like Dress Drew is one of those characters where I don't think you could do her in live action. You have to keep her animated. Who else as well? Spider-Man India was also very enjoyable and very likable. I loved how he was voiced by the same guy who plays Bupenda in the Deadpool movies. I really hope Deadpool 3 makes a joke of that, because I feel like that would be cool. And Spider-Punk was a lot of fun as well. I love his attitude and his kind of spunky, spiky kind of way, and the way he quit the Spider Society was epic as well. And his jokes as well were hilarious. I liked how he helped Miles get out of the cage, where he was like, put your hands on the surfaces, open your palms up, basically. I thought that was great. I liked how he was able to give Gwen his transporting device that he used. I believe that was him, because Gwen's dad said he was quite a piece of work, so I'm guessing that was him. But the supporting cast was terrific. But easily the best character in this movie, the best. We'll get to Peter B. Parker first. Peter B. Parker was great, like he was in the first film, and I just loved how he was a dad. He has kids, and I'm glad he was able to find some happiness in his life. It was good to see a bit more of a cheery side to this character, particularly this version of Spider-Man, because he was so low and down on his luck, and it's good to see him. He was able to clean himself back, get himself back into shape, clean himself back up. He was able to take the next step and reunite his marriage, and yeah, so he was able to do all of that, and yeah, it was just nice to see. But we'll get on to easily the best character, Gwen Stacy. Gwen is the best character in this film. Her story is just fantastic. The scene when her dad finds out she's Spider-Woman, and he goes to arrest her, that is so powerful. It's so powerful, and I just love I just love her world as well. Her universe. It's the colors and the shapes and just everything in this universe. And Haley Steinfeld does a great job, like she did in the last film, voicing her. And Gwen was such a cool character, and she didn't want to hurt Miles as well. Her relationship with Miles was fantastic. You really got the idea that she didn't want to hurt him, she didn't want to cause him any harm, but she felt like she had to stop him from not getting back to his universe to save his dad. It was very sweet and very heartwarming to see the two of them together, and to see him kind of disown her, similar to how her dad did. Not similar, but kind of he disowned her for lying. Well, actually, I guess it was similar though in a way, because she lied to her dad and then she lied to Miles. So I guess in a way it was similar, but the situations were a little bit different. And I can totally because obviously there's that whole theory going around that she's transgender, and I can totally see that, to be honest. I mean, her character and stuff is a perfect allegory for trans people, being excluded from their families for coming out, and even her world's got the trans pride colors, and there's the protect trans kids flag on top of Gwen's wall. Would I say the character is trans? I'm not too sure, but there's definitely some coding there. and I quite like that coding. I quite like that coding. Whether or not they decide to, decide, what, let's do it. Let's decide to do it. We'll see. But I do like but I can see where people are coming from that, and I completely, even I was thinking about that after I saw the film, even like before this was before the theory got posted onto social media. Even I was thinking like, that could be a good metaphor or allegory for trans people. And then I saw that, there was a Pink news article talking about it, and I was like, oh, I'm not the only one. Thank God. Spot was a good villain. I love the idea that they take the typical villain of the week and how much more threatening and serious he got as the film went on. Like he was proper scary. He was proper threatening. Like by the very end, like all you gotta do at the very end is just see him slowly get into Miles's universe so you can kill Miles's dad, and yeah, and like you're just like, oh my god, this guy like who started off as a joke is literally he's about to kill his dad, because that's the whole thing in the plot. Miles finds out that his dad's gonna die because it's through canon events, which I'll get onto in a second, but yeah, Spot was a good villain. He was also very funny as well. I love the idea that like the connection between him and Miles was because Miles threw a bagel at him in the first film. Like that is perfection. That is perfection. I fucking love that. But yeah, he got more serious as the film went on. I cannot wait to see how he's going to how it's going to be handled in Across the Spider-Verse, which I hope to God comes out next year. I've heard there's been rumors and rumblings that it could get delayed. Please, no. I need to see this third film. I need to see it now. My god, this is like when fucking Infinity War ended, and I needed to see Endgame right away. Oh, Jesus. But don't delay it. And yeah, so Spot, I cannot wait to see how he does in Across Spider-Verse, and how much more of a threat he comes, and how much more darker he starts to get. And I also liked how... actually, no, I'll talk about that later on. But I also liked let's talk about the fan service. So there was a lot of fan service in this movie. Obviously, it's called Beyond the Spider-Verse, and we knew there was going to be a lot of fan service. Like, you see a lot of cameos from a lot of different Spider-Mans. You see Ben Reilly, you see the Spectacular Spider-Man, you see Donald Glover dressed up as the Prowler, which pretty much hopefully confirms that he is the Prowler in the MCU. So hopefully he's a villain in the next Spider-Man film. Though I do feel bad for Scorpio because he's kind of just been pushed to the side, unfortunately. But it's all stuff like that. You see the Spider-Man PS4 video game. I've already mentioned Spectacular Spider-Man, but it was good to see Josh Keaton get some lines of dialogue as well, which is nice. And I really hope that they please make Spectacular Spider-Man season 3. Come on, Spectacular Spider-Man was a great show. Bring it back. Just bring it back. God damn it, bring it back. But what was cool about the fans, and obviously you see Andrew with the Captain Stacy thing, and you see Toby as well. You don't see Tom though. Tom the Spider-Man gets mentioned, but I don't remember seeing him at all in there. You also see the old animated Spider-Man cartoon as well, like the really really old one, where it's like Spider-Man, like that one. You see a spider dinosaur. But what's great about the fan service in this film is that it did not feel forced, and it felt part of the plot. It felt part of the story. It didn't feel forced. It wasn't like how Lucasfilm does their fan service now, where just kind of like it just feels like they're throwing it in your face and like, oh, remember this, like when, like I've said this before, but it's like when R2D2 and C3PO just randomly appear out of nowhere in Rogue One for like 2 seconds, and that's it. Like there's no reason for it. There's no doesn't really contribute anything. It's just cool. Okay. Yeah. So but it contributed to the plot, and that's because of the whole canon events thing. And I loved how they called it canon events, because that's what we as fans say. We talk about canon, and there's been a lot of talk about canon over the past few years, ever since I want to say 2020. People going on about canon and wanting to break the canon and stuff like that, the continuity. But I like how that aspect of the fandom, of the fan base, played into the story. Like it was a very good like meta text. It was like would I say it was that good subtext? Maybe, but it was just so good. It was so and it gave you a chance to see all these other ones and how they kind of established the formula that typical Spider people go through, like how Gwen knows about Captain Stacy dying because he's died in other universes, but then she finds out her father doesn't die, so that means that actually we don't have to stick to the canon. We can change it if we want to, and I think that's going to be a cool, crucial part of Miles. I don't think Miles' dad is going to die in the next one. I think Miles is going to save him. I have no reason to believe that Miles is not going to save his dad. And yeah. So the ending I thought was breathtaking. You know, Miles ending up in a completely different universe to the one that he's in. Because obviously it's established that the spider bite that he got bitten by was actually from another universe, Universe 42. So the Miles from that universe didn't get bitten, so he turned into the Prowler, like the Miles Morales Prowler, and it was just so creepy to see as well. And it took you so off guard as well. As well, seeing this universe without Spider-Man and seeing how low it's gotten, it's just crazy. And yeah, so he gets that. It was so shocking it was really shocking, and it's like when she said, "Who's Spider-Man?" and then when Gwen ends up in his room in the other universe, and that's when you're like, "Oh, he's in the wrong universe." Fuck. It was just so the tension was there, and it was gearing up, and it was just like, oh my god, like, and you feel like because you wanted him to tell his mom that he was Spider-Man, and he told her, but it was the wrong person, it was the wrong version, and it's like, oh no. And then obviously you got the grounded joke. I quite like that, actually, grounded joke. I thought that was quite funny. Yeah, the grounded joke I thought was quite funny. And yeah, so the ending, you know, and when Gwen gets the gang back together again, everyone from the first film, I thought that was great. I can't wait to see them all back again. Oh, I can't wait to hear Nicolas Cage back as fucking Spider-Man Noir because he was so hilarious. I really hope that he's involved in the live-action Spider-Man Noir series they're doing. I would happily just see Nick Cage play a live-action Spider-Man Noir. I don't care. I fucking love Nick Cage. And it was just so good. I need part 3 now. I need it now. It's like when like I said, it's like when Infinity War ended. You know, I needed Endgame now. I need to see Endgame now, and I need to see part 3 now. I like this movie. It makes you want to see the next. It makes you want to see it happen straight away. It's also kind of like Lord of the Rings trilogy, where once you watch the first one, you gotta watch Two Towers, and you gotta watch Return of the King to find out what happens. I like how this trilogy is kind of doing that, having that aspect of it, and I'm glad that it's just really effective, and overall, honestly, Across the Spider-Verse is a fantastic fucking film, and it's fantastic. It's gorgeous to look at. The characters are great. The character development is perfect. Miles is just getting better and better, and you know the cliffhanger ending. It's a cliffhanger, but you know what? It's a perfect cliffhanger. I like the cliffhanger. I liked how it ended. It leaves you wanting more. It leaves you wanting to see the next one, and I just love that. And I'm just gushing about this movie now. But I've really got to end this podcast because we're clocking in on 3 hours. Oh, fucking hell. So yeah, everybody, that is my retrospective of the Spider-Man movies. Thank you so much for listening in to this, God knows, nearly 3 hour episode. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you like these longer ones, let me know, and I might do more of them. I'll probably just do more of them anyway, to be honest. Next episode is going to be the Indiana Jones retrospective that I hinted at. Not well hinted at, but talked about in the Mario Brothers episode. Alex is coming back. We're going to be talking about Indiana Jones. That probably won't last very long. That'll not 3 hours, because we only got 4 movies to talk about. And then maybe after that I'll do an episode on The Flash, but we'll see. But yeah, so thank you so much for listening into this very long podcast, and I will see you when I see you next. Bye.